Chapter 1899. Central Continent? This was the second time Yun Jian had heard of this name. Yun Jian could not help but frown. The last time she heard of this name was from Huyen Ba, the head of the Huyen family, who used to be the #1 family in the Yulong continent. Huyen Ba had said something substantial back then. Back then, Huyen Ba had gone to the central continent and overheard a conversation between two black-robed men. The two black-robed men said that when the sorcerer god fell, the Lord God had used all his spiritual power to go against the heavenly Tao and saved him. They also said that the Lord God and the sorcerer god had gone to a place called Earth, and they had even sent people to assassinate them. They also said that if Yun Jian and Ce wanted to recover their memories as the sorcerer god and the Lord God, they had to inject powerful spiritual power into the sandalwood box. Later on, when they were absorbing the sandalwood box's memories, someone had interrupted them. Yun Jian believed that all of this was done by the mysterious person. The most important thing now was that since the black-robed men had appeared in the central continent, was the mysterious person from the central continent as well? Moreover, her teacher had asked her to come to the hunter school to find him. Did this mean that her teacher was also from the central continent? Yun Jian's eyes flashed. Her intuition told her that she had to go to the central continent. Little friend? Little friend? Little friend? Hardadef waved his hand in front of Yun Jian's eyes a few times before he managed to get Yun Jian's attention. Yun Jian had not recovered from the shock. She only raised her eyes slightly to look at Hardadef. Haha, from the looks of it, the two of you probably don't know the details. Have you heard of someone who was accidentally sucked into another world and then mysteriously returned here? Hardadef was the first to speak. Yun Jian nodded. I've heard of it. Ce stood beside Yun Jian. His handsome face paired with his cold expression made it seem as if all of this had nothing to do with him. He only had eyes for her. The person who was mysteriously sucked into another world was my grandson, Joseph. The world he was sucked into was a place called the Central Continent. This was what the people in that world told him. John explained again as he led Yun Jian and Ce to a row of simple houses. My grandson plans to bring everyone to explore that world. However, we don't know how we're going to go there yet. Let me introduce you to my grandson, Joseph. He's a friendly person. Hardadef said as he led Yun Jian and Ce to a house. There were 4 or 5 people sitting around the table in the house. One of them was a man who was about 25 years old. He had beautiful golden curly hair. This man was John's grandson, and also the one who was unintentionally dragged into the central continent. Joseph, these are the 2 new friends. Hardadef introduced Yun Jian and Ce to his grandson before turning around to introduce Joseph and the others. Joseph was indeed a friendly person. When he heard that Yun Jian and Ce were going to the central continent, he pointed to the benches in the house and gestured for Yun Jian and Ce to sit down. It's a very beautiful world. Trust me, I'll definitely bring you there. According to my observations over the past month, the entrance to that world will definitely open again in 3 days. After Joseph introduced himself to Yun Jian and Ce, he spoke to Yun Jian and Ce. Yun Jian was good at replying, but Ce didn't say a word. Joseph's friends were both male and female, and they all welcomed Yun Jian and Ce. Joseph's words were filled with confidence. Yun Jian blinked and continued to ask him, "Why are you so sure that the entrance to that world will open again in 3 days?" Intuition, I guess. Joseph didn't explain much and instead gave Yun Jian a casual and charming smile. Chapter 1900. Yun Jian and Joseph were sitting not far away just now, so Ce had been listening and did not think anything was amiss. When he saw Joseph flashing a bashful smile at Yun Jian, Ce was enraged as he pulled Yun Jian's hand and walked out. How dare this man named Joseph smile at his Xiao Jian like that? Before Ce could pull Yun Jian out of the room, however, Joseph had a sense of justice. Joseph, who had a sense of justice, spoke up to stop them when he saw Ce tugging Yun Jian's hand and walking out. Hey, bro. You're going to break her delicate hand if you hold her hand like that. Ce was not that enraged initially, but when he heard Joseph's words, his piercing gaze was like a murderous sword that was directed at Joseph. Before Joseph realized what he said was inappropriate, he stood up when he saw Ce refusing to let go. His handsome face in the eyes of foreigners was instantly displeased. Hey bro, how can you treat a woman like this? Joseph had no idea who he had offended. As he spoke, he went over to pull Yun Jian away from Ce. Before Joseph's hand could touch Yun Jian, however, Ce had already pulled Yunjian into his embrace and dug his hand into his trouser pocket. It was empty. Where was their marriage certificate? Yunjian was exasperated. She had secretly hidden the marriage certificate that he had been keeping with him before this. Ce, who could not get his hands on the marriage certificate, had a glint in his eyes as he encircled Yunjian in his arms and gave Joseph a sideways glance. "Stay away from my woman." As he spoke, he grabbed Yunjian's hand and walked out. Hey. I told you it's not good to treat a woman like this. What are you doing? Joseph was worried about Yunjian, so he picked up his jacket and chased after them. When he reached the entrance, Yunjian and Ce were gone. F*CK, that bro isn't bullying a woman, is he? He's not being violent, is he? Joseph hurried after them as he thought about it. Yunjian blinked as Ce pulled her all the way to a cliff. She could feel that he was furious at the moment. However, he held her small hand with controlled strength and did not hurt her. "Where are you taking me?" Yunjian blinked and asked. Ce did not say anything, pulling her hand all the way to a place surrounded by dense bushes with a cliff behind them. Just as they made their way into the dense bushes, Ce pinned Yunjian against the edge of the cliff and bent down to kiss her with heavy breaths. By the time Yunjian came back to her senses, he was already kissing her with a strong sense of jealousy. The cliff was surrounded by trees that were connected to the dense bushes. There was a huge rock above them. As long as one did not walk into the bushes, one would not be able to sense that there was someone here. At this moment, Ce pushed Yunjian against the cliff. In order to prevent the small rocks from pressing down on her back, he placed his large palm on her back. Ce's kiss was ferocious and Yunjian's back felt a lot of pressure, but her back was unscathed. Ce's palm that was pressed against Yunjian's back was scratched by the pebbles, but he did not care. After the kiss, Yunjian wrapped her hands around Ce's neck. She wanted to ask Ce what was wrong, but she felt Ce raise her two small hands above her head with his other large palm and withdraw his other hand from her back. Yunjian could see that the back of Ce's hand that was pressed against her back was scratched by the rocks. It was even bleeding. "You're bleeding," Yunjian said anxiously. Before Yunjian could finish, however, Ce's bruised hand lifted her leg that was in the skirt, forming a 90-degree angle as he leaned forward. Chapter 1901. Reality proved that a man like Ce who had tasted meat couldn't help but be a vegetarian every day. Even if Yunjian was stupid, she could tell that he was angry because Joseph was too close to her. She had to admit that she liked Ce's angry look. Yunjian blinked slightly. Her legs were lifted and she suddenly wrapped her arms around his neck. It was a tacit consent for Ce to do something to her in the wilderness where there were only trees, bushes, and cliffs around them, but the place was well covered. Ce was also a normal man. Seeing his beloved woman hinting at him like this, he didn't hold back anymore and used his actions to prove his love for her. Hunting school. After sending Yunjian and the other students into the forest, Lin Wei and Jamie returned to their residence. The students had to survive in the forest for a month. In this month, even if the students were attacked by wild beasts and accidentally died in the forest, it was their own fate. Everything depended on one's ability. Of course, this wasn't the main point for Lin Wei and Jamie. The main point was that Lin Wei and Jamie could be said to have a relaxing vacation for this month. Lin Wei didn't plan to stay in the hunting school for long. And Hun's assassin training camp still needed him. But for some reason, he didn't want to return to Hun for this month. One had to know that among the 4 leaders of Hun, only Lin Wei was the most dedicated. It could be said that he had devoted his life to Hun. In the past, whenever Adam, Mo Sen, and Shui Ying went out to play, Lin Wei would directly reject them and continue to train his assassin training camp. Lin Wei played a huge part in Hun's success today. Initially, Lin Wei had planned to return to Hun's assassin training camp for this month, but he didn't want to go back now. Returning to his simple bedroom in the hunting school, Yiling was sitting at the foot of the bed. Seeing him return, Yiling stood up fearfully. But she heard Lin Wei's words continue, "Pack up and leave with me." Yiling had stayed in the hunting school for almost 10 years and hadn't left for 10 years. She missed home and wanted to leave, but she couldn't. Therefore, after hearing Lin Wei's words, Yiling's gloomy face instantly lit up with anticipation. "I can leave this place?" Yiling asked Lin Wei in disbelief. Lin Wei was still a man of few words. He looked at Yiling, nodded, and then turned around to open the door, intending to leave for a while. Then, "Can I go home now?" Yiling's face was filled with disbelief. She looked at Lin Wei in disbelief and took 2 steps towards Lin Wei excitedly. However, just as she excitedly took 2 steps towards Lin Wei, Yiling didn't notice the smooth ground and fell directly in front of Lin Wei in the next second. Yiling had developed well and was very plump. With this slip, her ample bosom directly fell onto Lin Wei's arm. Feeling the warmth, Lin Wei's calm expression changed drastically. "This is..." Fortunately, Lin Wei's face was facing the door, so Yiling couldn't see his expression. By now, Yiling had realized her rudeness just now. She stood up straight with a blush while Lin Wei's expression returned to normal. "Watch the ground when you're walking. Why are you running around?" To ease the situation just now, Lin Wei coughed lightly and scolded Yiling. Yiling blinked. For some reason, she wasn't afraid of his scolding at all. "Softer, softer." Yun Jian tried her best not to make a sound as Ce pressed her against the edge of the cliff to do something embarrassing. Her face was as red as an apple. Ce kept his eyes on Yun Jian. With a smile on his face, most of his anger dissipated. His Xiao Jian was the prettiest at this moment. Just as Ce was hugging Yun Jian, Joseph's voice came from afar. Chapter 1902. Joseph's voice was getting closer and closer. It was impossible for Ce to stop at this critical juncture. Ce kissed Yun Jian's lips and blocked her beautiful voice. "Brother, brother, brother. Oh my God. Did he really bully her? That little girl looks so delicate. How could she have such a boyfriend? He even resorted to domestic violence. This kind of person should be arrested and sent to the police station." Joseph couldn't find them. After wandering around for a while, he started walking back while muttering to himself. Joseph was a righteous person. Even though he saw Yun Jian and thought that Yun Jian was pretty, there was no such thing as love at first sight. Love at first sight was based on the other party's looks. It wasn't love. Even though Lin Wei had said those words to Yiling when he first saw her, it didn't mean that Lin Wei had fallen in love with Yiling at first sight. Even now, Lin Wei still didn't love Yiling. He had only said those words because he found Yiling pleasing to the eye. Joseph had chased after them because he saw Ce's fierce expression. It was as if he wanted to eat Yun Jian up. Of course, eating here was different from being a loving couple. Joseph thought that Ce was going to beat Yun Jian up. It was domestic violence. However, after looking around for a while, Joseph couldn't find them, so he went back. After Joseph left, Ce didn't restrain himself at all. Yun Jian, who was pressed against the cliff, grabbed his shirt and didn't know where to put her hands. Moans came continuously from her mouth. In the little forest, the spring scenery was endless. Joseph searched for Yun Jian and Ce all the way, but he couldn't find them. Thus, he returned to the simple house where they had set up camp. Joseph's grandfather John, who had introduced Yun Jian and Ce to Joseph and had even told Yun Jian and Ce about the details, grabbed Joseph's ear. "Joseph, where did you go?" John asked Joseph. "Ouch, ouch, ouch. Grandpa, I saw that he was about to resort to domestic violence, so I went to stop him." Joseph had an innocent look on his face as his grandfather dragged him 2 steps by the ear. "That's enough. Why are you joining in the fun? Do you want to watch the lovey-dovey couple? My son of AB*TSH, grow some eyes, be careful not to be destroyed." John loosened his grip on Joseph's ear and muttered a few words of reprimand. John was in his 50s or 60s this year. He had a rich life experience, so he naturally saw through it. Hardadef could tell that Yun Jian and Ce weren't ordinary people. This was especially true for Ce, a young man. Hardadef thought of Ce and his eyes darkened. This young man was definitely not an ordinary person. He was not to be trifled with. In the grove, Yun Jian, who had been pestered by Ce thrice, was weak in the knees. Ce tidied Yun Jian's clothes back to their original state. He did not stop even when there were people coming over, and even after Ce tidied up Yun Jian's clothes, Yun Jian pushed Ce away and walked forward. Her legs were numb, but she had good stamina and could still walk. Seeing that Yun Jian was ignoring him, Ce went up to hold her hand. "Xiao Jian." Yun Jian shook Ce's hand off and walked back a little angrily. He was angry for no reason just now, and now it was her turn to piss him off. In fact, Yun Jian was inwardly overjoyed. Just as they got back, Joseph went up to Yunjian with his friends when he saw her. "You're back? He didn't do anything to you, did he?" Joseph asked Yunjian. Siyi's expression darkened when he saw Joseph approaching Yunjian again. He pulled Yunjian into his arms and glared at Joseph from the corner of his eyes like a cheetah. Yunjian ran her fingers through her hair without saying a word. Her face was terrifyingly red. "Yunjian, why's your face so red? We all saw it just now. He pulled you out selfishly. Don't tell me he hit you?" "Yunjian, don't be scared. If you meet a scumbag, we'll definitely help you. Did he hit you? Your face is so red, right?" A charming woman in her 20s with dyed purple hair and a high nose stood beside Joseph. She glared at Ce when she saw how red Yunjian was and wanted to speak up for Yunjian. Joseph and his friends were looking at Yunjian, thinking that Ce had abused Yunjian and wanted to stand up for Yunjian. Noticing that Joseph kept staring at Yunjian, Ce's jealousy rose again. He glanced at Joseph from the corner of his eyes and said without batting an eyelid in front of everyone, "You're the one who's going to make a fool of yourself." Chapter 1903. Ce's straightforwardness made Yunjian blush. He actually dared to say such a thing out so directly. It was as if he was afraid that Joseph and the rest didn't know what they did in the forest. Hearing Ce's words, Joseph, his friends, and the rest of them did not know how to react. Made a child? In the forest? Joseph and his companions were all stunned. Cough, cough, cough. Cough, cough, cough. Cough, cough. Nicola, who wanted to speak up for Yunjian, had a boyfriend. Nicola was the first to react to Ce's words. In addition, she was wearing a black, sexy, secret agent miniskirt and a tight-fitting black outfit. There was a butterfly knife tied to one of her legs under the miniskirt that no one could see. However, when Enila lowered her head slightly, she could see that Yunjian's fair thighs were red from the friction. It was obvious that she had done something bad. Cough, cough, cough. Where were we? The entrance to the central mainland will open in 3 days, right? Hurry up, let's continue with our preparations. Nicola was the first to react. She dragged Joseph and his other friends into the house while everyone else was still reacting to the situation. Awkward, a mysterious awkwardness. Nicola was misled by Joseph's words. She really thought that Ce had bullied or abused Yunjian. Nicola thought that Yunjian was just an ordinary girl. Nicola had a strong sense of justice. As a woman, if she saw Ce abusing or bullying Yunjian, Nicola would definitely stand up for Yunjian, even if she had just met Yunjian not long ago. But the man in front of her was a jealous king? He pulled her into the forest not to hit her, but... Cough, cough, cough. She couldn't think about it anymore. Nicola flicked her purple hair and pushed Joseph and his friends into the house. Outside the house, Yunjian tugged at the corner of her lips. Ce's lips curled as he grabbed Yunjian's hand, satisfaction written all over his face. Without a marriage certificate, he could still declare his sovereignty. His Xiaojian could only be his. No one could dream about it. Hardadef was considered the supervisor here. He arranged a room for Ce and Yunjian so that Ce and Yunjian could stay here at night and rest during the day. Yunjian and Ce rested here. In the next 3 days, Yunjian got to know Joseph, his friends, Hardadef, and the people here. They were all friendly. These people were all modest and friendly, especially Hardadef. As long as there were people who wanted to go to the central continent and wanted to explore it, or people who were interested in passing by, he would take them in. Unfortunately, Meng Zhang and his friends who had interrupted Ce's plan in the cave not long ago were taken in by Hardadef as well. Yunjian, who knew about this, did not appear in front of them, so Meng Zhang and his friends did not know that Yunjian and Ce were here as well. It was only on the 3rd day when Joseph announced that he had found the exact location of the central mainland that Yunjian and Ce appeared in front of everyone. Meng Zhang was stunned when he saw Yunjian and Ce. Wu Tianlin, who had been harboring ill intentions toward Yunjian, also glanced at Yunjian from the corner of his eyes. Although he knew Yunjian's identity before this, it was a huge blow to him. Hateful people were hateful. No matter how powerful they could not change this reality. As for Wan Menglin, she could not help feeling jealous when she saw Ce with one hand in his pocket and the other holding Yunjian's hand. Why was such an outstanding man hers and not hers? Was it because she met him too late? Yunjian was also a student of the hunting academy. She was even related to an Hun group. Once she thought of this, Wan Menglin's heart clenched in jealousy. Is everyone ready? To be honest, I'm not sure if I can send everyone back this time. The other world is very dangerous, even life-threatening. If you don't want to take the risk, I advise you to stay. Chapter 1904. Joseph's words were said in all seriousness, as if he was making a solemn promise, but also as if he was a hero, a Superman. In Joseph's country, messiahs, heroes, and supermen were the targets that the boys yearned to be. And today, Joseph stood in front of everyone like a hero, saying those touching words to everyone. No one would say such a thing. Joseph's words must have come with a lot of determination. The group of people standing beside Joseph were all moved. Yun Jian blinked, but didn't show any signs of being moved. In the end, everyone unanimously decided that except for John and the older ones, the younger ones would follow Joseph. Whether they could return from this trip to the other world was unknown, and whether they could find the entrance to the other world was also unknown. Of course, Joseph and the others didn't know that it was only a matter of time for Yun Jian and Ce to find the entrance. The group of people followed Joseph and soon continued to move forward from the row of houses. Knowing that Joseph had been to the other world, everyone present was very interested. This was especially true for Wan Menglin. She followed closely behind Joseph and asked him about the other world he had been to. In the end, Wan Menglin felt as if she had been to the other world herself. It was as if she understood everything about the other world after listening to Joseph's words. Wan Menglin ran to Yun Jian, raised her head proudly, and boasted to Yun Jian. Did you know that there are flying horses in the other world? It's the kind of horse that can fly, just like the ones in fairy tales. Wan Menglin spoke as if she had been to the central mainland. Yun Jian gave a cold smile and held Ce's large hand, ignoring Wan Menglin. This scene made Wan Menglin so angry that her face turned green. At this moment, Joseph suddenly pointed to a spot and said to everyone, "Look, it's that cave. It's glowing." At that time, I fell down from that cave and arrived in another world. I remember that the cave was glowing as well. It's glowing now. Let's hurry over. Otherwise, we won't be able to go to that world. Joseph led the group to a cave. At the same time, the cave suddenly emitted a white light. This scene shocked the surrounding people. At the same time, Joseph suddenly shouted, "Let's go." With that, Joseph led the way into the cave. Seeing this, the people around Joseph also rolled in one by one. How could Wan Menglin care about Yun Jian and Ce now? She chased after them and rolled into the cave. There's a strong spiritual aura in the cave. Ce narrowed his eyes as he looked at the cave. Let's go over too. Yun Jian glanced sideways at Ce. Okay. Ce grabbed Yun Jian's hand and walked over. After everyone had entered the cave, the light in the cave was like a flash in the pan. It was as if it had never appeared in the first place. There was no more sound. The moment Yun Jian entered the cave and was enveloped by the white light, she felt as if she was bathed in sunlight. She felt dizzy. Perhaps it was because the spiritual energy injected into the white light was too strong, and Yun Jian's memory of the sorcerer god was incomplete, so she fainted with a headache. Yun Jian wasn't the first to wake up. When she woke up, most of the people had woken up too. What entered their eyes was no longer earth, but a world filled with white fog and smoke. This was the central mainland. Yun Jian, you're finally awake. Your man is gone. We didn't see him around when we woke up just now. Could he have been transported to another place? Nikolai walked over after Yun Jian woke up and asked Yun Jian. The group of young men and women beside the Long family's patriarch were the descendants of the Long family. Seeing this bloody scene, Joseph and the surrounding people cried out in alarm. When the second young master of the Long family saw Joseph, his pupils constricted and he shouted at Joseph, "Go! Go, Joseph! Leave this place! Run!" In the central continent, it was common for families to fall. Sometimes, a powerful expert with strong spiritual power could exterminate a family. Joseph was stunned when he heard this. Wan Menglin was so frightened that she turned around and wanted to run. He. Since you're here, don't leave. Stay here. The expert flying in the sky waved his hand and closed the door. Wan Menglin originally wanted to be the first to run out, but the door was closed tightly. She was so frightened that she sat on the ground and trembled. Why did they have to encounter such a thing? What a coincidence. They came here just when the Long family was about to be exterminated. It's actually a human without any spiritual power. The expert discovered that Joseph and the rest did not have any spiritual power and was surprised. He then relaxed his attack on the Long family's patriarch. Interesting. You're actually from Earth. Ha ha ha. All of you will become my dinner. The expert pointed his spear at everyone. For a moment, everyone, including Wan Menglin, was so frightened that they did not dare to move. One must know that there were immortal cultivators in this world. If an immortal cultivator moved a finger, they would not be able to fight back at all. Just as the expert was about to kill everyone with a wave of his hand, however, a blinding light shot out from Yunjian's hand in front of everyone and easily blocked the attack. Seeing this, the expert's pupils constricted. This little girl was actually able to block his attack. One must know that this little girl did not have any spiritual power. In the various continents, there were only two reasons why one could not see the other party's spiritual power. First, the other party was a human from Earth. Second, the other party's spiritual power was higher than his. Could it be that this little girl? The expert was stunned, then he frowned and asked Yunjian, "Who are you?" At this moment, everyone looked at Yunjian. However, Yunjian released her aura in front of everyone. She looked directly into the expert's eyes without fear. Suddenly, she curled her lips and sneered. Just like 1,000 years ago when she was famous across the continents for killing the gods, all the experts of the continents were frightened by her name. She said coldly, "Despicable commoner, listen carefully to the question of who I am." Chapter 1906. At this moment, Yunjian's aura was fully unleashed. That powerful aura made everyone present shudder. Meng Zhang, Wu Tianlin, Wan Menglin, Joseph, Nikolai, and the rest felt their hearts skip a beat. Yunjian's words made the powerhouse fly in the air in a daze. He could not react for a while. Not to mention the Long family, the last of the three major families in the central mainland. When Joseph brought his people here, the Long family, who could not withstand the powerhouse's attack and were about to be wiped out, only wanted to curse when they saw Joseph and the rest. Were they stupid? Coming here at this juncture was asking for death. However, the Long family did not expect such a huge change. They were not mistaken. A ray of light flew out from the hand of the human girl who did not have any spiritual power and blocked the powerhouse's attack. The girl even called herself Sorcerer Goddess. In the legends, she had been to the gods' continent that no one could reach or even know if it existed in this world. She had even killed the gods of the gods' continent with her bare hands. The Sorcerer Goddess, the daughter of the Sorcerer clan from the Sorcerer clan of the Yulong continent. The Sorcerer Goddess, the youngest and most powerful of the Sorcerer clan. She had led the Yulong continent from the bottom of the tens of thousands of continents to an existence that no other continent could rival except for the legendary gods' continent. Back then, the Yulong continent was the lowest-level continent among the tens of thousands of continents. The people of the Yulong continent were existences that could be trampled on by any continent. Later on, the Sorcerer clan, the #1 family of the Yulong continent, produced a Sorcerer Goddess. In just a few years, this girl named Sorcerer Goddess led the Yulong continent to become the most powerful continent among the tens of thousands of continents other than the legendary gods' continent. Later on, the Sorcerer Goddess fell. Although the Yulong continent was not as powerful as before, it was no longer a continent that could be trampled on by anyone. Later on, there were rumors that the Sorcerer Goddess had been to the gods' continent and had killed the gods of the gods' continent. The Sorcerer Goddess of the Yulong continent was a great figure that was respected and feared by tens of thousands of continents. The most appropriate example was that if the immortal cultivators of the tens of thousands of continents had children who were fooling around and refused to cultivate spiritual power, the parents would only need to say in front of their children, "Stop fooling around. If you don't listen to me, I'll let the Sorcerer God eat you." This child would definitely be so scared that his entire body would tremble, and he would immediately run off to cultivate his spiritual power. However, the Sorcerer God, who had struck fear into the hearts of millions of people, had already fallen. Apart from the Yulong continent, no one from the other continents knew about the return of the Sorcerer God. Therefore, when Yun Jian finished speaking, everyone present was dumbfounded. Of course, this was only limited to the expert flying in the sky and the people of the Long family. Ni Kra, Meng Zhang, Wu Tianlin, Wan Menglin, and the others did not know the meaning of the two words Sorcerer God. Seeing that everyone was stunned, Wan Menglin was also stunned. Then, she glanced at Yun Jian disdainfully. In front of everyone, she wanted to be in the limelight, so she said, "What is sorcerer god?" After saying that, Wan Menglin looked at Yun Jian. Her face was full of mockery, contempt, and deep reproach. "Yun Jian, what kind of critical moment is this? Can you be a little more mindful? Do you think you're still on Earth? Do you think that if you pretend to be from the Yulong continent, people will give you face? Don't think too highly of yourself. It's fine if you want to die, but please don't bring harm to all of us." Something like this was happening in the Long family of the central mainland. At the same time in the deity continent. The deity continent really existed, and it stood at the top of the millions of continents. It required a strong spiritual power to open the passage to the deity continent. Similarly, to leave the deity continent to go to the millions of continents or Earth, one also needed to open the passage. There were no more than 10 deities on the deity continent who could open the passage to or from the deity continent. Therefore, even if the deities on the deity continent really existed, they could not stand in front of everyone. The deity continent, the temple. The temple was the symbol of the deity continent. At the same time, it was also the place where the ruler of the deity continent lived. It symbolized supreme glory. All the deities on the deity continent were under the jurisdiction of the ruler of the temple. In the temple, an old man sat in the middle of the main hall, eating meat and drinking wine. A man walked in from outside the temple. This man was extremely handsome. His tall and slender figure was so perfect that it made people gasp in amazement. Even the splendor of the divine hall was overshadowed by his handsome face. The old man took a bite of chicken. When he saw the man, he was stunned. Then he cheered. "Yo, the ruler of our deity continent, the Lord Divine Lord, is finally willing to come home?" As he spoke, the old man took a bite of chicken drumstick and a sip of wine. He looked at the man left and right as if he was looking for someone. When he could not find the person, the old man scolded the man with dissatisfaction. Chapter 1907. As the old man spoke, he took another bite of the drumstick and drank a mouthful of wine with it, looking extremely satisfied. Si Yi's gaze darkened as he glanced at the old man from the corner of his eyes. Suddenly, he stretched out his right hand and grabbed the air in front of the old man. The old man, who had been sitting comfortably on the short table, was suddenly pulled up by a force and hovered in the air. The drumstick in his hand fell off and spun in front of him. The old man wanted to grab his drumstick, but there was a force that prevented him from doing so. The old man could not break Si Yi's spiritual energy, even after exhausting all his spiritual energy. Pop! The old man burped first and hovered in the air, glaring at Si Yi with his not-so-ferocious eyes before continuing. "Brat, are you trying to kill your father? Hurry up and put me down. You chased after the sorcerer goddess back then and only came back to see me after thousands of years. You're being rude to me the moment you come back. Be careful or I'll spank you." As he spoke, the old man even clenched his fist at Si Yi like an old child. The temple was where the ruler of deity continent resided. The ruler of deity continent was also the ruler of the gods. It was the symbol of supremacy, the symbol of ultimate capability. Si Yi was the ruler of deity continent. Lord Deity was the title the gods of deity continent gave him. This old man was Lord Deity's father, the Lord Deity. At the same time, the old man was also the previous ruler of deity continent. Lord Deity was the title the gods gave to the previous ruler. At this moment, the Lord Main God, who was revered by all the gods, was hovering in the air, unable to land on the ground. "Old man, let me give you a piece of advice. If the beloved disciples you sent to tail her dare show up again, don't blame me for killing them." Si Yi looked at the old man coldly as he uttered those words. Every time he was alone with Xiao Jian or wanted to do something, the annoying fellows the old man sent to watch their every move would appear. If it were not for the old man's dignity, he would have destroyed those fellows directly. With that, he retracted his hand and his spiritual energy dissipated. Like a bird with a broken wing, the old man fell from the air without any warning and landed back where he had been sitting just now. With a loud thud, the old man groaned and rubbed his butt to face Si Yi, feeling wronged. "How can you treat your old man like this? Brat! Be careful, or I'll make the sorcerer goddess Cutie ignore you forever." "How dare you?" Si Yi's eyes darkened when he heard that the old man wanted her to ignore him forever. The old man was terrified. Seeing the change in Si Yi's expression, He quickly waved his hand. No, no, I'll listen to you. Which goddess cutie is yours? And I dare not snatch her from you. He wasn't being a coward. He was just going easy on him. The old man wiped the sweat off his brow, and instantly felt that it was fortunate that he had cleared up the relationship with the little girl one step ahead of him. He was now the sorcerer goddess cutie's master. On the other side, after Wan Menglin mocked Yun Jian, the surroundings were silent. After 2 seconds of silence, the Long family master suddenly looked at Wan Menglin. He didn't even care about the experts who were flying in the sky and almost annihilating the Long family. Wan Menglin was still feeling smug at this moment, but the Long family master suddenly looked at Wan Menglin and said to his Long family guards, "Capture that woman." According to the continent's practice of speaking rudely to the sorcerer goddess, that woman should be burned alive. Shatter his soul and scatter his soul. This practice was a rule set by the continents 1,000 years ago. Anyone who spoke rudely to the sorcerer goddess would have their soul shattered after being burned to death. Their soul would be destroyed. They would never be able to reincarnate. What kind of practice is this? You're treating human lives like grass. Is there any law? Wan Menglin was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Her face darkened as she shouted. Meng Zhang, Wu Tianlin, and the others were also shocked. What kind of practice was this? Speaking rudely to Yun Jian. She actually wanted to burn her alive, shatter her soul, and destroy it? Meng Zhang, Wu Tianlin, and Aikila, and the others present couldn't understand. Yun Jian, who was standing on the same spot, smirked slightly. She turned her head to the side and faced Wan Menglin in front of everyone. She was cold and full of vigor, as if she was the ruler of all things. Her words rang out. The words that came out of her mouth stunned everyone present. Her vigor, her arrogance. Chapter 1908. The sorcerer goddess was the law of the land. This was not an exaggeration at all. Yun Jian had the unique aura of the sorcerer goddess. Even if the Long family and the powerhouses in the sky did not believe it, they could not do it. Who else could have such a strong aura other than the sorcerer goddess? Although they were not within 3 meters of Yun Jian, they could not detect if there was really no spiritual power within 3 meters of the sorcerer goddess. However, with Yun Jian's aura just now, no one else in the world could do it except for the sorcerer goddess. Sorcerer goddess! The head of the Long family suddenly knelt down in front of Yun Jian and shouted. Seeing this, the younger generation of the Long family knelt down and imitated the head of the Long family to kowtow to Yun Jian. In an instant, the scene was extremely chaotic. The only thing that was left in the crowd's ears was the words, "Sorcerer Goddess." It was obvious that the sorcerer goddess was very impressive back then. Even today, thousands of years later, when they heard the words, "Sorcerer Goddess," all the families in the mainland would still kneel down and kowtow to her. In an instant, the words, "Sorcerer Goddess," shook the sky. The powerhouse who was so arrogant in front of the crowd just now wanted to escape when he saw that the situation was not right. However, Yun Jian, who was in front of the crowd, stretched out her hand. She did not even look at the powerhouse. She used her spiritual power to grab the powerhouse's body and squeezed gently. The powerhouse who could annihilate Long family, the tail of Central Mainland's 3 dominant families, all by himself, was killed the moment Yun Jian pinched him lightly in the air. Exploded. The powerhouse's eyes widened. The second before he exploded in front of the crowd, he looked at Yun Jian in disbelief, but he had no choice but to believe it. In the next second, the powerhouse's body was completely destroyed. Not even his bones could be found. He completely disappeared in front of the crowd. Seeing this scene, the head of the Long family and the rest of the Long family gasped in shock. As expected of the sorcerer goddess, she was so powerful that no one could defeat her. That powerhouse just now had the ability to force the Long family into a dead end by himself. But as the sorcerer deity, Yun Jian was able to destroy such a powerful expert with just a pinch of her fingers. Seeing this scene, the people from the Long family sighed, but they didn't want to die. They had seen this kind of scene many times. However, Wan Menglin and the others were so scared that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. She, kill, kill, kill. Kill, kill, kill. Wan Menglin was so scared that she stuttered, unable to let out a fart for a long time. However, just as Wan Menglin stuttered for a long time without saying a word, Yunjian suddenly felt a huge wave of spiritual energy around her. She narrowed her eyes, and in the next second, her figure flashed and chased in the direction of the huge wave of spiritual energy. Whether it was the Long family or Joseph's group, since she had come to the central continent, she did not plan to stay for long. At this moment, Yunjian didn't say anything and just chased after the figure with huge spiritual energy fluctuations. Two shadows that were as fast as phantoms shuttled through the forest. In the next moment, the figure in front of him landed on the ground. Yunjian couldn't help but narrow her eyes at someone who could run so far in front of her. This person must be a god from the gods' continent. Apart from the gods' continent's gods, there was no one else who could run so far in front of her before she caught up to them. In the next breath, Yunjian grabbed the shoulder of the figure who was running at high speed. "You've been watching me since we were in the hunting school. What's your motive?" After Yunjian grabbed the figure's owner, her cold voice rang out. The person whose shoulder was grabbed by Yunjian was a woman who was slightly taller than Yunjian and had a voluptuous figure. The woman was looking straight ahead, so Yunjian couldn't see her face clearly. Hearing that Yunjian had discovered her long ago, the woman was obviously shocked. However, Yunjian's words rang out again. These words made the woman even more flabbergasted. Chapter 1909. If what Yunjian said just now was not shocking enough, the way she addressed her as senior sister was a huge blow to the woman's ego. How did she know? The woman thought so and asked, "How do you know who I am?" "Master met you on Earth, but we've never met. How do you know of my existence?" "He speaks the truth when he's drunk. Apart from me, he only has one disciple." Yunjian narrowed her eyes and smiled. Obviously, Master Bailey spoke the truth when he was drunk. He told Yunjian that he had another female disciple apart from Yunjian. The woman was speechless when she heard that. She felt like she had been betrayed by her stupid master. The woman didn't feel like she had betrayed her master's trust when she was caught stalking her and recognized her identity. "All right, since you recognized me, I won't hide anymore." The woman turned around and looked at Yunjian. What entered Yunjian's eyes was a woman's face with an ancient charm. The woman had a strong scholarly smell, but her body was so charming that men couldn't stop looking at her. Her seemingly innocent face, coupled with her voluptuous breasts and plump buttocks, made her look cold, gentle, sexy, and a little mysterious. It had to be said that an ordinary person would give off a strange feeling if they were to have these characteristics. However, when everything was presented on this woman, there was a unique kind of beauty that opened people's eyes. Even Yunjian couldn't help but blink. "I've heard that you're the only disciple apart from me. Strictly speaking, you're my junior sister." The woman reached out her hand to Yunjian and said boldly, "It's my first time meeting you. I'm Huang Yan, the first disciple of the deity continent's master god." The woman who called herself Huang Yan was very bold and straightforward. She had the refreshing feeling of a heroine. Yunjian narrowed her eyes and reached out to shake her hand. She rarely shook hands, so the people who could shake hands with her must be people she was happy to know. After shaking hands with him, Yunjian narrowed her eyes and smiled faintly. "Yunjian, daughter of the sorcerer clan of the sorcerer tribe of the Yulong continent, sorcerer goddess." After Yunjian finished speaking, the two of them got to know each other for the first time. When Huang Yan heard this, he curled his lips. "I know you. Master asked me to investigate a lot of information about you. He chased you from Earth to the central continent and asked me to keep an eye on you. I didn't expect that I would be exposed right from the start." As Huang Yan spoke, he drew an arc. Yunjian was not stupid. Naturally, it was impossible for her not to have guessed the identity of her master by now. Just now, Huang Yan had also said that she was the #1 disciple of the master god of the gods continent. In other words, her teacher was the master god of the gods continent. When Yunjian was the sorcerer goddess, she had been to the gods continent. Perhaps she hadn't recovered some specific memories yet, but she still knew what the gods continent's master gods represented. The master god of the gods continent was the previous ruler of the gods continent. At the same time, he was also the master god's father. Yunjian, who knew the truth, curled the corners of her lips. When she thought of her master's childish appearance and the identity of the master god of the gods continent, it was really inappropriate. "Originally, after being discovered by you, I should have taken you directly to the gods continent, but I'm not strong enough. When I came here, It was Master who opened the passage to leave the God's continent for me. If I want to go back, Master will come to pick me up 3 days later, Huang Yan said seriously. I can open it, Yunjian answered. What? Huang Yan was stunned. I can open the passage to the God's continent, Yunjian repeated in detail. After Huang Yan heard this, he was really stunned. I've long heard rumors of your strength in the God's continent. You've even killed a god from the God's continent. I've always thought that you were able to go to the God's continent because some expert let you in. After all, there are no more than 10 gods in the God's continent who can open the passage to the God's continent. Chapter 19:10. Huang Yan was a little shocked. She was a god of the God's continent after all. Even if she was shocked, she would not show it on her face. Hence, the two of them headed to the entrance of the God's continent. If they wanted to go to the God's continent, they had to activate the teleportation circle at the designated location. There were no more than 10 people in the world who could activate the teleportation circle at the designated location. Apart from Yunjian, the rest were all gods of the God's continent. However, even Yunjian had to go through the designated location to activate the teleportation circle to the God's continent. When Huang Yan came out of the God's continent, it was the Master God who activated the teleportation circle at the designated location. The designated location to the God's continent was the Tan family, the leader of the 3 great families of the central continent. At the same time, in the hunting school, Yiling had stayed in the hunting school for so many years. She had very few things that belonged to her. She only had 2 sets of clothes and almost nothing else. For example, the dead 211 and the group of women who were with him had stayed in the hunting school for so many years. However, 211 and the group of women who were with him had beautiful clothes and jewelry. They were all luxury goods that could be sold at a good price. This was because those things were obtained by 211 and the group of women using their bodies in exchange for those things. Yi Ling packed her things in the girls' dormitory building and waited excitedly for Lin Wei downstairs. She could finally leave the hunting school. At this moment, the excitement in Yi Ling's heart could not be described with words. Lin Wei didn't pack anything. Seeing Yi Ling waiting for him downstairs in the female dormitory, he walked over in a few steps and wanted to help her carry her luggage. No, I can carry it myself. Yi Ling carried her luggage with both hands and wanted to reject Lin Wei's kindness. However, Lin Wei grabbed the luggage that Yi Ling was carrying with both hands and left with Yi Ling, not allowing her to refuse. Just as they got into Lin Wei's Maserati sports car, Yi Ling hugged her luggage and asked Lin Wei, "Where are we going? Can I go home now?" Travel. Lin Wei was still a man of few words. He gave Yi Ling a simple reply. Travel? Yi Ling was stunned. If Adam or Snow Eagle were here, they would probably be stunned by Lin Wei's words. Traveling? In the past, when Adam went on a trip with the Snow Eagle organization, Lin Wei rejected them very straightforwardly. The reason was only one word. Boredom. Yi Ling naturally didn't know this, but she wanted to go home, so she turned her head to look at Lin Wei, pursed her lips, and asked Lin Wei, "Then after the trip, can I go home?" Okay. Lin Wei agreed. Yi Ling's heart was suddenly filled with excitement. However, Lin Wei's next sentence broke Yi Ling's excitement. He said, "You can after you give birth to the child." Yi Ling was speechless. Why was he so obsessed with having children? On the other side, in the Tan family, the leader of the 3 great families in the central mainland, there was a mountain not far from the Tan family's residence. Beside the mountain, there was an abandoned array. Legend had it that as long as this array was activated, one would be able to head to the deity's continent. However, this was only a legend. However, beside this abandoned formation, there was sufficient spiritual energy. In layman's terms, cultivating beside this abandoned formation would be 10 times faster than cultivating outside. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the disciples of the Tan family would cultivate beside this abandoned formation. When Yunjian and Huang Yan arrived, they saw many disciples of the Tan family cultivating beside this abandoned formation. Although this formation was abandoned, as long as enough spiritual energy was injected into this formation, the abandoned formation could be opened and one could head to the deity's continent. Yunjian and Huang Yan had just arrived, but before they could reach the abandoned formation, they were stopped by someone. "Who are you? What are you doing here? Don't you know that this is a forbidden area?" Other than the people of the Tan family, Outsiders are not allowed to enter. Chapter 1911. The Tan family was actually responsible for guarding the passage between the gods' continent and the other continents. They were the guardian family of this abandoned Dharma array. At the same time, the strength of the Tan family's disciples was also very strong. That was because cultivating at the entrance to the gods' continent, which was the abandoned Dharma array, could be 10 times faster than cultivating outside. Therefore, among the thousands of continents, the Tan family's strength could not be underestimated. At the same time, the Tan family had also guarded this abandoned Dharma array for generations in order to prevent some bad people from getting close to the Dharma array and destroying it. When Huang Yan came out of the gods' continent, she was not discovered by anyone in the Tan family. As for the matter of the sorcerer god going to the gods' continent and killing the gods of the gods' continent, it was also spread by the ancestors of the Tan family. This was because the ancestors of the Tan family had seen the sorcerer god open this abandoned Dharma array and go to the gods' continent with their own eyes. Now, after a long time, the people of the Tan family still firmly believed that the gods' continent really existed in this world. They had been guarding this abandoned Dharma array, absorbing the spiritual power emitted by the Dharma array and protecting it. At this moment, the burly man standing in front of Yun Jian and Huang Yan was looking at Yun Jian and Huang Yan with a vicious expression. Seeing that Yun Jian and Huang Yan did not move or leave, the burly and muscular man roared at Yun Jian and Huang Yan. "Why are you still not leaving?" After roaring, the man revealed a ferocious expression at Yun Jian and Huang Yan. Ordinary girls, even if they were cultivators, would have been scared away by the man's ferocious expression and terrifying aura. Seeing that Yun Jian and Huang Yan did not move, the man frowned. "Big brother, are you going to be kind again? This is our Tan family's forbidden area. Trespassers will die. According to our Tan family's rules, anyone who enters our Tan family's forbidden area will be killed without mercy. Big brother, you have already let go of 2 people who mistakenly entered our Tan family's forbidden area. If you ignore our Tan family's rules like this, how will you inherit our Tan family's great cause in the future? This time, no matter what, I will not let anyone who enters our Tan family's forbidden area leave alive." After the tall and sturdy man roared at Yun Jian and Huang Yan, a young man behind him led a group of Tan family disciples over. Hearing the young man's words, the tall and sturdy man was the eldest son of the Tan family, Tan Ming. At the same time, he was also the next successor of the Tan family. As for the young man following behind, the one who had spoken to Tan Ming, he was the second young master of the Tan family, Tan Liang. The Tan family had 2 young masters. The eldest young master, Tan Ming, and the second young master, Tan Liang, were not born from the same mother. Yun Jian could tell at a glance that the person who had just roared at her and Huang Yan, telling them not to leave quickly, was the eldest young master, Tan Ming. The Tan family had 2 sons. Tan Ming was tall and sturdy. He was not handsome, but he was the future heir of the Tan family. Tan Liang was the exact opposite of Tan Ming. Tan Liang was handsome and was highly sought after by girls. Tan Liang had been eyeing Tan Ming's position as the future successor of the Tan family for a long time. Just now, Tan Ming Chong had roared at Yun Jian and Huang Yan. It was obvious that he wanted to save them. This was the Tan family's forbidden area. According to the Tan family's rules, ordinary people who trespassed would die. Tan Ming, who had hurriedly walked over and roared at Yun Jian and Huang Yan, was trying to save them. He wanted them to quickly run away before Tan Liang could arrive. That was why he had revealed such a ferocious expression. Unexpectedly, Tan Liang had been staring at them for a long time. As soon as he heard the noise, he hurriedly walked over. "They just happened to pass by here. There's no need to kill." Tan Ming frowned when he heard Tan Liang's words. He turned to look at Yun Jian and Huang Yan and roared, "Why aren't the 2 of you scram?" This action was also to save Yun Jian and Huang Yan. Yun Jian, who was opposite him, narrowed her eyes slightly. At this moment, a young girl standing not far away stared at Yun Jian and Huang Yan and said, "Big brother, second brother is right. They have broken into our Tan family's forbidden area. They must die." After the young girl finished speaking, she turned her eyes to Yun Jian with a fierce expression. "Speak, what are you doing here? Tell me your purpose and I'll let you die quickly. I'll send you to our Tan family's servants and let you enjoy a round of female family happiness before you die. Then I'll send you to heaven." The young girl who spoke was the Tan family's 5th miss, Tan Tingling. Tan Tingling's words were not polite at all. The meaning behind her words was extremely unpleasant. This abandoned Dharma array had been abandoned for many years. Other than the sorcerer god, the Tan family had never seen anyone who could open the Dharma array that led to the deity's continent. Therefore, the young girl and the people of the Tan family naturally did not think that Yunjian and Huang Yan were here to open the Dharma array. Opening the Dharma array that led to the deity's continent was simply something that ordinary people could not do. Even in the deity's continent, there were only a mere 10 people who could do this. Therefore, everyone concluded that Yunjian and Huang Yan must have come to destroy the abandoned Dharma array. However, just when everyone thought so, they saw that Yunjian, who was standing in front of everyone, narrowed her eyes slightly after hearing the young girl's words. In the next breath, an ancient and heavenly female voice clearly reached everyone's ears. Hearing this, everyone's faces changed greatly. These words seemed to have come from thousands of years ago, but they were still arrogant. Chapter 19:12. Yunjian's eyes darkened slightly. She said this very calmly. However, after hearing Yunjian's words, everyone present was stunned. Everyone present was someone who had weathered many storms and waves. They quickly regained their senses. The sorcerer god of Yulong continent? Tan Tingling, who had been acting like a spoiled brat, was stunned and asked Yunjian this question. The reason why the Tan family was guarding this abandoned formation was so that one day, they would be able to see the supreme deity from the god's continent. They had absolute respect for the sorcerer god who could enter and leave God's continent. Moreover, the Tan family believed that this abandoned formation could lead to God's continent after it was activated. God's continent really existed in this world. In addition, if the gods wanted to enter God's continent, they had to pass through this formation. After hearing Yunjian's words, Tan Tingling's expression changed abruptly. When Tan Ming and Tan Liang heard this, their expressions changed drastically as well. After Tan Ming's expression changed, he hurriedly said to the Tan family disciples behind him, "Hurry up and find father." Regardless of whether the sorcerer god was the real one, they had to call the Tan family's patriarch, who was also their father, over first. "There's no need." The one who spoke now was Huang Yan. "Junior sister, let's go." Huang Yan turned his head and spoke to Yunjian. Yunjian nodded. Because of Yunjian's words, the Tan family members did not dare to stop her. The group of people watched as Yunjian and Huang Yan walked toward the abandoned formation. Was she really the sorcerer god? Tan Tingling wiped her sweat carefully and looked at Yunjian. Just as she was about to speak, Yunjian was interrupted. A scene that shocked Tan Tingling, Tan Ming, and Tan Liang happened. Yunjian extended her hand and pointed it at the abandoned formation. In the next second, a powerful spiritual power surged out of her hand and poured into the abandoned formation. The formation on the ground suddenly spun. In the end, a white light flashed and pulled Yunjian and Huang Yan into it. The wind blew gently. After the white light flashed, Yunjian and Huang Yan disappeared from where they were. It was as if nothing had happened. It's really the sorcerer god. Back then, when the sorcerer god was still young, he killed the deities of the god's continent and became the strongest existence among the thousands of continents. The sorcerer god has returned. Quick, go and spread the news. Let everyone know that the king of the myriad continents has returned. When everyone in the Tan family saw this, they were so frightened that they knelt at the spot where Yunjian had disappeared. Their exclamations, shouts, and cheers were thunderous. 1,000 years ago, the sorcerer god was the god in the hearts of the people of every continent. Today, 1,000 years later, she was still an immortal legend. Wherever he went, he was respected by tens of thousands of people. Xinming Continent. Ce was about to leave to find his Xiao Jian when he was stopped by the old man. "Just play a round of chess with your cute old man. Just this once. Later, I'll give you my cute little disciple. You can play with her however you want." The old man pestered Ce with his words. Hence, Ce stayed. When the game of chess ended and Ce turned around, he saw the entrance of the temple. Yunjian's petite figure stood at the entrance. Her perfect figure paired with the face he was so familiar with and loved deeply. Ce stared at Yunjian and strode over. He went to Yunjian in a few steps and pulled her into his arms. "How did you find your way here?" He was only here to warn the old man not to let his beloved disciple follow him and Xiao Jian again. Yun Jian knew that Ce did not come here without telling her on purpose. Yun Jian was not surprised to see Ce here either. It was because when she came, Huang Yan had told her everything. In spite of it, Yun Jian still pushed him away and ignored him, pretending to be annoyed. She would only act like this in front of him. After pushing Ce away, Yun Jian went to the old man and bowed to him, saying softly, "Master, I finally found you. Thank you for teaching me back then." Yun Jian was genuinely grateful. When she was slaying God, she did not have the memories of the sorcerer god. She was no different from a normal human being back then. If it were not for her master, she might have died in that ruthless world. Hey, don't. What's there to bow and thank? We're family. I still want to live for a few more years. The old man waved his hand at Yun Jian in fright after being glared at with murderous intent. Chapter 1913. Her master was still the same. He had not changed at all. Yun Jian straightened her back and looked at the old man, flashing him a knowing smile. The smile came from the bottom of her heart. There was gratitude, satisfaction toward her current life, and many other indescribable emotions in her smile. Ce, who stood aside, was surprised to see Yun Jian smiling at the old man. She had never shown such an expression to him before. Ce went over to grab Yun Jian's hand and encircled Yun Jian in his arms. Glancing at the old man from the corner of his eyes, he told Yun Jian, "Xiao Jian, ignore this crazy old man." As he spoke, he tugged her hand and walked out. Watching Ce leave with Yun Jian's hand in his, the smile on the old man's face faded. Taking a sip of wine, the old man sighed and turned to look at Huang Yan. "Yan, your stalking skills still need to be improved. Both of them realized that you're following them." The old man sounded like he was reprimanding Huang Yan in a serious manner. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the old man suddenly added, "Next time, it will be Master's turn to follow the two of them. Learn from Master's invincible tracking skills." Huang Yan smirked, not wanting to expose the adorable old man as he replied, "Yes." After the old man finished speaking, he suddenly became solemn and respectful. He looked at Huang Yan and said very solemnly to Huang Yan, "Bring the witch goddess out tonight. I have something to tell her." "Yes." Huang Yan nodded his head. After Ce led Yun Jian out of the shrine's main hall, he went straight to his bedroom. The Ce shrine's bedroom was antique, clean and tidy without being flashy. There were not many things placed in the room, so one could count them all at a glance. Just as they entered Ce's bedroom, Yun Jian looked around curiously. Just as she did so, Yun Jian suddenly felt someone hugging her from behind. Needless to say, it was definitely him. After hugging Yun Jian, he gently pressed Yun Jian's back against a classical table in the bedroom. "Let's go to bed." Yun Jian knew what Ce was going to do and blushed. "Right here. I like it." Ce wasn't shy at all. As soon as she finished speaking, she started to move. The scenery of the gods' continent was very beautiful. There were no changes in the 4 seasons. The scenery here was like the beginning of spring all year round. The morning dew sprinkled down, fresh and free, giving people a kind of mysterious beauty. The gods' continent also had day and night. This was the same as the Earth and the other continents. Yun Jian really didn't go out for the whole afternoon. By the time night fell, her legs were already soft. Later, Huang Yan said that he wanted to take Yun Jian out for a walk. Only then did Ce let Yun Jian go. Yun Jian didn't let him tag along. Just as he took Yun Jian out of Ce's bedroom, Huang Yan said to Yun Jian, "Master is looking for you." Chapter 1914. Hearing her master's words, Yun Jian's eyes flashed with a profound light. In the next second, she nodded at her master with great certainty. "I want to recover all my memories as the sorcerer god. I must recover them." "Then what if recovering the sorcerer god's memories puts you in danger, or even death?" The old man looked straight at Yun Jian and asked. "He has already recovered all his memories, right?" Yun Jian asked the old man. He was naturally referring to Ce. When the old man heard that Yun Jian had already guessed it, he didn't hide it anymore. "That brat recovered his memories long ago. Today, I asked Huang Yan to bring you out alone so that the brat wouldn't know that I wanted to help you recover your memories. Otherwise, He would definitely stop me. After saying this, the old man sighed again and said to Yunjian, I won't hide it from you. I won't hide it from you. If you recover your memories today, you'll definitely be dragged into this again. That stinking brat doesn't want you to recover your memories because he wants to bear everything by himself. I'm not siding with that brat. I just feel that you have the right to choose whether to advance and retreat with him or leave him to bear everything by himself. As the old man spoke, he added, If you recover your memories, your life will be in danger at any time. My disciple, it's up to you to choose the future. I choose to recover my memories, Yunjian said firmly without hesitation. After hearing Yunjian's words, the old man nodded in satisfaction. Good. He was very satisfied with her answer. With that, the old man flipped his hand, and a bottle of potion filled with immortal qi appeared in his hand. He gently tossed the potion to Yunjian. After Yunjian caught the potion, the old man suddenly returned to his original mischievous appearance. He looked at Yunjian and said, This is a memory potion that I specially concocted. It's called, Long Live the Strongest, Most Handsome, and Most Powerful Lord God. Drink it and you'll immediately regain your memories. The old man's narcissism wasn't something to brag about. Even steel couldn't break it. The corners of Yunjian's mouth twitched, but she still gave the old man a knowing smile. Then she opened the lid of the potion and drank it all in one gulp. In the depths of his mind, a certain memory that had been locked away was unlocked after the potion entered his stomach and spread throughout his body. The memories of being the sorcerer god flooded her like an avalanche. The gears of memory brought her back to thousands of years ago, to the age when she was in her prime. 1,000 years ago. As the daughter of the sorcerer tribe, the sorcerer goddess was the most powerful being in the sorcerer tribe. She led the sorcerer tribe and the Yulong continent from the lowest level continent to the strongest continent. Before all the karma started, before the sorcerer god met the divine lord. That day, the sorcerer god had left Yulong mainland for a few months. When she returned to the sorcerer tribe, many of the sorcerer tribe's young ladies had been defiled by a man. The men of the sorcerer tribe had been killed by that man. That's right. This man was a god of the deity continent. At the same time, his strength was strong enough to open a formation from the deity continent to the other continents. The sorcerer god chased the man all the way to the Tan family in the central mainland. She opened a passage to the deity continent in front of the Tan family members. After arriving at the deity continent, she killed the man on the deity continent. The god was killed by the young ladies of the deity continent. The gods of the deity continent then invited the ruler of the deity continent, the divine lord, to the scene. That was the first time the sorcerer god met the divine lord. She held the butterfly knife in her hand and stood stubbornly among the gods. She looked into his eyes without fear. Chapter 1915. Are you the ruler of the deity's continent, the divine emperor? This was the first question she asked when she saw him. At this moment, the sorcerer goddess was holding a butterfly knife in her hand. She was stepping on the god who had defiled the girl of the sorcerer tribe and killed the man of the sorcerer tribe. Yes. The divine emperor, who did not care about anyone else, answered her question in front of everyone. Sir divine emperor. The deity's continent is the ruler of all things. Every god is a supreme being. Today, they were killed by a weak girl from the thousands of continents. You must kill her to seek justice for the gods of the deity's continent. An old man from the deity's continent stared at the sorcerer goddess and said to the divine emperor. After the old man finished speaking, the deities standing around him nodded their heads in agreement. Yes, how can the gods of the deity's continent be killed by her? Even if our gods have done something wrong, it is what they should have done. People from the lowly continent should be stepped on by us. Yes, Sir Divine Emperor, please kill her immediately. The Divine Emperor could hear the voices of the surrounding gods. However, he did not move. The surrounding gods only opened their mouths but did not dare to attack the sorcerer goddess. The god that the sorcerer goddess had just killed was one of the 5 most powerful gods of the deity's continent. One could imagine how powerful this girl from the lowly continent was. Perhaps only the divine emperor could subdue her in the entire deity's continent. The divine emperor did not listen to the chatter around him. He looked at her and asked, "Why did you kill him?" "He killed my people and defiled the girls of my tribe. He deserved to die." The sorcerer goddess did not look at him. She stared at the ground and tightened her grip on the butterfly knife. The Divine Emperor narrowed his eyes. However, just as the Divine Sovereign was about to speak, the group of gods standing around him suddenly coughed up blood and collapsed to the ground, dead. Seeing this, the Divine Emperor and the Sorcerer Goddess frowned. He. The ruler of the deity's continent, Sir Divine Emperor? The old Master God is dying? He handed over the deity's continent to a young boy like you. A man in a black robe appeared in the sky. This person's entire body was black, revealing only a pair of pitch-black eyes. This person was none other than the mysterious man. Who are you? The Divine Lord looked over with a frown. This little girl's willpower is not bad. She actually survived? The mysterious man glanced at the sorcerer god in surprise. The surrounding gods were not weak, but in front of the mysterious man, they couldn't even withstand one move. The witch god was not killed by the mysterious man's pressure just now, which showed how powerful she was. Interesting. Enjoy the maze that I've left for you. The mysterious man waved his hand and disappeared in front of the god and the sorcerer god. After the mysterious man disappeared, the forest suddenly turned into a bottomless abyss. There was no sign of life in the surroundings. When the Divine Lord saw this, he tried to use his spiritual energy, but to no avail. That mysterious person's spiritual energy was not necessarily above his, but the bottomless abyss that the mysterious person had conjured had used spiritual energy that he could not break. The Divine Lord frowned. That person is looking for you. This has nothing to do with me. Goodbye. The sorcerer god saw this and turned to walk to the other side of the bottomless abyss. Didn't you hear what he said? None of us can get out. Don't walk around. The bottom of the bottomless abyss is filled with god-destroying rocks. If you fall, even a god's soul will be destroyed. Seeing that the sorcerer goddess was about to turn around and walk away, the immortal monarch stepped forward and grabbed her sleeve. The sorcerer god was wearing a classic black robe. After fighting with the god just now, her robe had many holes in it. With the Divine Lord's tug, the plain clothes in front of her chest were pulled down. The sorcerer god had developed well and was very plump. Her breasts were a little swollen these days, so she did not wear underwear. Chapter 1916. The black clothes the sorcerer goddess wore resembled ancient tights. When the tights were wrapped around the sorcerer goddess body was fully displayed. When the Divine Lord tugged, he could see everything inside clearly. Their development was indeed very good. The Divine Lord was mesmerized. The sorcerer goddess could not react in time. When the sorcerer goddess reacted, although she did not scream like the other women, her face was still red. She quickly pulled the clothes back to their original position. The sorcerer goddess raised her hand and slapped the Divine Lord's handsome face. Shameless! The women of the sorcerer tribe valued their chastity the most. The sorcerer tribe had a rule that if a woman lost her chastity before marriage, she would either marry the other party, kill the other party, or die. The sorcerer goddess had never been treated like this by a man. Hence, she blushed and slapped the Divine Lord. As the ruler of the gods' continent, the Divine Lord was also the ruler of all things. He had been respected and flattered since he was young. He had never been slapped before. Moreover, the other party was a young woman. The Divine Lord grabbed the sorcerer goddess' wrist with a flip of his hand. It was the behavior of a gentleman to never lay a hand on a woman. He was no gentleman. If anyone provoked him, he would kill them regardless of whether they were men or women. This was the Divine Lord's style. The sorcerer goddess had slapped him just now. Based on the Divine Lord's personality, he would have killed the sorcerer goddess by now. But after he grabbed her wrist, he just pulled her wrist and walked towards the steep cliff and the bottomless abyss. Please let go of my hand. The sorcerer goddess' face was red. No man had seen her body before. Not only had he seen her upper body, but he was also holding her wrist. The Divine Lord grabbed the sorcerer goddess' wrist and said gently, "Don't move. I'll take you away from here." At this moment, the two of them were standing in a narrow passage on the cliff. It was only enough for one person to pass through. The two of them stepped on the narrow passage. The sorcerer goddess could still step on the passage with both of her feet. On the other hand, the Divine Lord who was looking at her had half of his foot on the passage and the other half hanging outside. At the bottom of the cliff was the god-slaying rock. As the name suggested, The god-slaying rock was magma used to kill gods. Even if a god accidentally fell into the god-slaying rock, they would be instantly turned into ashes. This was the power of the god-slaying rock. The sorcerer goddess saw that the divine lord was taking her away. She pursed her lips and stopped making goddess. She did not say anything else. God-goddess's eyes. The divine lord's gaze. The sorcerer goddess. God-slaying rock's body. Slaying God's body's body. Goddesses God's body. After a while, the divine lord quickly said, "Our spiritual energy is hindered here, so we can't use it normally. But don't worry, you were dragged into this because of me. I'll definitely take you out of here safely." Goddess, hold me tight, he suddenly said to her. Is God Lord, goddesses. Was goddess God. Goddess. There's a cave at the bottom of the cliff. Hold me tight and I'll bring you into the cave, the divine lord explained. With that, the divine lord paused for a moment before adding, just a while. I won't take advantage of you. Since he had said so, she couldn't refuse. Furthermore, neither of them could use their spiritual power here. The mysterious person was also unable to use his spiritual energy here. This place created by the mysterious person should be another space. Only then did the sorcerer god gently reach out and press his front body against his chest, hugging him tightly. Chapter 1917. The sorcerer goddess naturally did not notice the divine lord's abnormality. At this moment, the sorcerer goddess was buried in the divine lord's chest, sniffing his faint and pure scent. It smelled good and fresh. She'd thought that men were stinky creatures. She did not expect a man to smell so good. The divine lord no longer hesitated. He hugged her and fell backward. The sorcerer goddess hugged him and fell off the cliff as well. This was a very dangerous move, especially since the divine lord and the sorcerer goddess had lost their spiritual power. Their bodies fell toward the god-slaying rock at the speed of light. When she was in mid-air, the divine lord hugged her with one hand and used his other hand to grab onto a protruding rock somewhere on the cliff that they had been falling from. That hand actually supported the weight of the two people, stopping them from falling and hanging them on the edge of the cliff. The sorcerer goddess blinked in shock. Whether it was the immortal cultivators of the various continents or the gods of the gods' continent, they lacked the essential strength of their bodies because they cultivated spiritual power. Hence, they all had one thing in common. Without spiritual power, they were only ordinary earthlings. Some were even weaker than ordinary earthlings. As for him, he was able to do this even without spiritual energy, which showed how strong his body was. This shocked the sorcerer goddess. When she came to her senses, the divine lord had already carried the sorcerer goddess into the cave. After entering the cave, the divine lord let go of the sorcerer goddess as expected. The divine lord and the sorcerer goddess spent the next 3 days in the cave. It was too cold at night. The divine lord hugged the sorcerer goddess to keep her warm. The sorcerer goddess rejected him at first, but she gradually became addicted. 3 days was not a long time. The sorcerer goddess could feel that she had feelings for him that she should not have. Hence, after the divine lord solved the maze 3 days later, the sorcerer goddess left without saying goodbye after they left this desolate place. The divine lord could naturally feel her feelings for him. At that time, the divine lord already had feelings for the sorcerer goddess. In the temple, the divine lord's father, the main god, sat on the table. Seeing that the divine lord had been absent-minded for the past few days, he said to the divine lord, "What are you thinking about? If you like her, go after her. You brat. What did I teach you? If you like her, go after her. If you can't get her, just take her. You're not afraid that she won't agree to you." As he spoke, the old man took a bite of the drumstick and drank a glass of wine. "How do we chase after him?" The divine lord glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. His sharp gaze met the old sovereign's as he asked. 3 years later, the ceremony of the continents will begin. At that time, you can bring the betrothal gifts and propose to her in front of everyone who is attending the ceremony. Won't you succeed then? The old master god chuckled and took another swig of wine. For the next 3 years, the divine lord kept meeting the sorcerer god in the cave he had mentioned previously. There was a bed in the cave, as well as daily necessities. It was the place where they secretly met. 3 years passed quickly, and the grand ceremony of the continents was the next day. That night, the deity told the sorcerer goddess that he was going to propose to her at the ceremony the next day and asked her to show up. The sorcerer god rejected him. The divine monarch angrily said, "If you don't come, I will destroy the myriad continents." Then he left. On the second day, the sorcerer god really did not appear, because she knew that he would not really destroy the myriad continents. He was not that kind of person. At this time during the ceremony, the king of the Yulong continent said in a fit of anger, "The sorcerer goddess will not come." The divine lord was so angry that he killed the king of the Yulong continent. Then he went to the cave where they had agreed to meet to look for her. The things that happened after that were fragments of memories that Yun Jian had recovered. In the cave, he wanted to force her and bring her back to the deity continent to marry her. However, the deity continent was attacked by the mysterious person's black-robed men. In order to protect the sorcerer god, the divine lord rushed back to the deity continent alone with his 4 great guardians and left her behind. Chapter 19:18. The black-robed men were the mysterious man's subordinates. The mysterious man was the leader of the black-robed men. The black-robed men were dressed in the same way as the mysterious man. They were all dressed in black, except for a pair of sharp eyes. Other than that, it was impossible to tell what they looked like. As for who the mysterious man was, there was no way to know. From the moment he appeared, he had been fighting the divine lord and the sorcerer god. When the divine lord returned to the deity continent, he found that the black-robed men sent by the mysterious man to attack the deity continent were just a cover. The mysterious man's real purpose was her. When the divine lord arrived at the wizard tribe, the mysterious man had already attacked the wizard tribe and fought with the sorcerer god. In order to protect the wizard tribe, the sorcerer god was defeated by the mysterious man and was about to be destroyed. Of course, such a powerful figure as the mysterious man was also seriously injured after the battle with the sorcerer god. His soul should have been destroyed. In Yun Jian's memory, she remembered that the mysterious man should have been destroyed together with her. In the end, he swallowed a bead and fled the scene. The moment the divine monarch arrived, it was the moment when the mysterious man fled the scene. The sorcerer god fell to the ground and was about to be destroyed when the divine lord arrived. Before this, the sorcerer god had never dared to say, "I love you" to the divine lord directly. Even though they had been meeting in the cave for the past 3 years and secretly kept in touch, the sorcerer god had never shown her love for the divine lord. She was afraid and did not dare to accept his love, but she could not stop herself from secretly keeping in touch with him. This should be what love was supposed to be like. When her eyes were about to close, the sorcerer god reached out her beautiful hands and placed them on the divine lord's handsome face. It was the first time she took the initiative to kiss him. I'm dying, but there's something I must say. The sorcerer god placed her lips beside the divine lord's ear. She used all her strength to say the words that she had never dared to say when she was alive. It had always been him who had done everything for her. She wanted to say but could not. "I love you." After she said those words, the divine lord's slender bony hand gently touched her face. A powerful spiritual energy emanated from the divine lord's body. "You." The sorcerer goddess was too weak to speak. She stared at him with widened eyes. However, the divine lord did not hesitate at all and directly injected all of his spiritual energy into her body. If that happened, he would die. The sorcerer goddess was speechless. She shook her head, but she didn't even have the strength to raise her hand to stop him. "If you die, how can I live on?" With that, he gave her all the spiritual energy in his body. He used his entire life's worth of spiritual energy in exchange for her life. As a god, the divine lord's action could save her, but the price he would have to pay was death. The consequence of having one's soul scattered. Sorcerer god, nothing must happen to you. The shaman race still needs you. Sorcerer god. At that moment, the sorcerer tribesmen who had suffered heavy casualties after the battle with the black-robed man could not help but crawl up in pain. They knelt in front of the sorcerer god and wailed in pain. "She'll be fine." The divine lord stood up after transferring all of his spiritual energy to her. Then, he used the last of his spiritual energy to tear open the passage from the Yulong continent to the ancient tomb on Earth and send her to Earth. After that, the divine lord knelt on the ground with one leg and disappeared on the spot. This was The sign of a god's death. The divine lord had died for her. The last thing the sorcerer goddess saw before she was sent to Earth was him smiling gently at her and saying silently, "You have to live on." He sent her to Earth because he did not want the mysterious man to find her and persecute her again. At least for a short period of time, before she could protect herself, she could not be in any danger. Seeing this, the sorcerer goddess disappeared before the eyes of the sorcerer tribesman and was sent to Earth. She left behind one last sentence that was as firm as a blood oath. "I'll definitely return after 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, when she returned, she would die with the mysterious man even if her soul was scattered. He had said, "If you die, how can I live on?" If he died, how can she live alone? Chapter 1919. That was why the sorcerer goddess left behind the words, "I'll definitely return after 1,000 years." That was why, even though she could not remember the past, as the slaying god in her previous life, she had a deep obsession. She had to survive. She had to become stronger. All of this was for the sake of killing the mysterious person. As if waking up from a dream, Yun Jian regained her senses. Her memory stopped at the moment when he disappeared from the Yulong mainland for her and she was sent out of the Yulong mainland by him. "Io, my little cutie sorcerer goddess, why are you crying?" "Don't cry, don't cry. Wipe your tears. If that brat sees this, he'll think that I've done something to you." When the old prime god saw the tears in Yun Jian's eyes, he paced back and forth anxiously, pacing back and forth in circles. Fortunately, his brat was not here. If he was, he would probably blow up his lair based on how much that brat pampered the sorcerer goddess. "Master, the Lord God is here." Huang Yan, who was standing guard outside the house, suddenly sensed a powerful aura. She knew that the Lord God must be here. She quickly poked her head in and shouted at the old Lord God. "What? Damn. What a coincidence. Those who don't know better will think that I've bullied his wife." The old Lord God panicked when he heard that. Yun Jian, who was standing on the spot, blinked. She could not see the scene in front of her clearly because of the tears that fell uncontrollably. She could only feel the emptiness behind her and a familiar warm arm pulling her into an embrace. Seeing her crying, Ce frowned. In the next second, Ce glanced at the old man from the corner of his eyes and asked rudely, "Damned old man, what did you do to her?" Don't, son. Don't be angry, don't be angry. I'm just helping our little cutie sorcerer goddess regain her memory." As soon as the old Lord God finished speaking, a ball of flame flew out from Ce's palm and hit the old man's pitifully little hair. "Oh will. Pain, pain, pain. My poor hair." The old man was hopping back and forth on the spot because of the flame. In the end, the fire was extinguished, but not a single strand of hair was left on his head. F***CK. How could there be a son like you? Do you think it's easy for me to go to Earth to buy hair growth agent? The old man held his hair and stomped his feet. Ce cast a sidelong glance at the old man, then pulled Yun Jian's hand and left. In Ce's bedroom. Ce pulled Yun Jian back to his bedroom. Before he could close the door, Yun Jian hugged him. Ce was not stupid. She naturally knew what the old man had done to Yun Jian. "I'm fine, aren't I?" Ce's handsome face moved. He reached out and rubbed Yun Jian's head, then hugged her tightly in his arms. Why did you save me? If you had died then." Yun Jian did not dare to speak. She could not imagine a world without him. "Because it was you," Ce said without hesitation. After Ce said this, Yun Jian stood on her tiptoes, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him. She had nothing to repay him with, and she knew that he did not lack anything. He was the god of the gods' continent, the ruler of all things. He could have been so high and mighty that even the mysterious man was no match for him. He had almost died because of her. Yun Jian did not know how to repay this kindness. Moreover, he did not lack anything. Thus, she could only repay him with her body. Ce, who was pushed onto the bed by Yun Jian, was flattered. The moment Yun Jian sat down, Ce could not believe that all this was real. Chapter 1920. In the past, Ce was the one who worked hard while Yun Jian enjoyed it. Today, Yun Jian pushed Ce to the back of the bed and took the initiative to do it. It was late at night. Even on the gods' continent, it was the night for the gods to rest. Only the breeze was left. However, the place where the divine lord of the divine temple resided was lit the entire night. Yunjian kept doing it at first, but later on, she really had no strength. Ce refused to let her go and finally pestered her to do it 3 more times. Yunjian began to regret provoking him, the devil, on her own accord. The next day, Yunjian lay in bed all day. Her legs went soft as soon as they touched the ground. On the 3rd day, Yunjian could finally touch the ground. At noon that day, Huang Yan came to find Yunjian. At first, Ce didn't let Yunjian go with her. Last time, it was Huang Yan who helped the old man call her away. She even did that behind his back. However, Yunjian insisted on going, so Ce agreed. At this moment, Huang Yan led Yunjian to the market of the gods' continent. The gods' continent were inhabited by the gods. Here, there were also markets similar to those on other continents on Earth. Huang Yan used the currency of the gods' continent to buy some things. Just as she was about to take Yunjian back to the god temple, a shout stopped her. Yan Yan? You're actually out shopping? I haven't seen you for half a year. I heard that you're in seclusion? I miss you so much. As soon as this shout came out, Yunjian could see Huang Yan's brows sink. Originally, Huang Yan invited Yunjian to the market today to let Yunjian accompany her to buy some things that the old man, the god lord, had asked her to buy. She didn't expect to meet an acquaintance. Let's go. When Huang Yan heard this, she ignored the person who spoke. She whispered to Yunjian and was about to take Yunjian away. The god temple was where the ruler of the gods' continent lived. On the gods' continent, the person with the highest status was the god lord. Next was the sovereign. In the deities' continent, other than the Lord Divine Lord, who had the highest status, there were 5 great elders who had the same status as the Lord Divine Lord. The strength of the 5 elders was on par with overgods. Their status and influence were on par with overgods as well, and they were all subordinates of the Divine Lord. As for the man who called out to stop Huang Yan, he was the 3rd disciple of the 5 great elders. His name was Xuanzhen. Xuanzhen's appearance was average, and he was even shorter than Huang Yan. Meanwhile, what everyone knew was that Xuanzhen was interested in Huang Yan. In the past, he had always bothered Huang Yan, but Huang Yan had always ignored him. Whenever she saw him, she would always take a detour. That was because the great elder's status was on par with the master god. Xuanzhen was the great elder's disciple while Huang Yan was the master god's disciple. Thus, Xuanzhen had always felt that he and Huang Yan were a perfect match. Seeing that Huang Yan was about to leave, Xuanzhen hurriedly brought a group of men and women with him to surround Huang Yan and Yunjian. Hey, don't go, Yan Yan. Are you unhappy to see me? Xuanzhen brushed his bangs as he spoke, giving Huang Yan an adoring look. Whether it was the gods of the gods' continent or the people of Earth, their behavior was the same. Except for the gods of the gods' continent who had spiritual power. Huang Yan cast a sidelong glance at Xuanzhen and said coldly, "Get out of the way, a good dog doesn't block the way." Senior brother Xuanzhen, look, she doesn't give you any face at all. She thinks that she is the master god's only disciple, so she is showing off. Actually, she doesn't have any ability. Why would you like such a woman? A woman in her early 20s standing next to Xuanzhen charmingly struck a few poses, cast a sidelong glance at Huang Yan, and said to Xuanzhen. This woman was jealous of Huang Yan's beauty, and because Huang Yan was the master god's only disciple, she had always been jealous of Huang Yan. At this moment, Yunjian, who was standing next to Huang Yan, turned her head slightly. Her beautiful face immediately appeared in front of everyone, causing them to suck in a deep breath. When the woman who had been disdainful of Huang Yan saw this, she clenched her fists tightly and looked at Yunjian. She is not a god of our god's continent. The woman originally wanted to say a few words of contempt to Yunjian, but when she felt the aura emitted from Yunjian's body, which did not belong to the gods of the gods' continent, she looked at Yunjian in surprise. The next second, the woman glared at Yunjian with a contemptuous expression. Chapter 1921. The spiritual energy emitted by the deities of the gods' continent was different from the spiritual energy emitted by the people of the myriad continents. The spiritual energy emitted by the deities of the gods' continent was mostly powerful. As long as one was a deity of the gods' continent, They would be able to smell the spiritual energy emitted by the deities of the gods' continent and the spiritual energy emitted by the people of the various continents. According to the deities of the gods' continent, the spiritual energy emitted by the people of the myriad continents was mostly lowly, disgusting, and nauseating. Yun Jian's spiritual energy was too powerful, so that woman, as well as Xuanzhen and the other deities present, did not realize that she was not a deity of the gods' continent. The woman who spoke rudely to Yun Jian was called Jin Zhenxiu. Jin Zhenxiu was the little disciple of the second elder of the 5 great elders. At the same time, she was also the second miss of the Jin clan of the gods' continent. The Jin clan was ranked 3rd among the 10 great clans of the gods' continent. A clan's power in the gods' continent, when placed in the myriad continents, was enough to destroy those continents. The Jin clan, even in the gods' continent, was one of the best. Hence, Jin Zhenxiu had always been cocky. Without a doubt, Xuanzhen's Xian clan was also one of the 10 great clans of the gods' continent. Xuanzhen's Xian clan was ranked 2nd. The other men and women who could walk together with Xuanzhen, Jin Zhenxiu, and the others were definitely from the 10 great clans of the gods' continent, or they were disciples of the 5 great elders. Their status in the gods' continent was extremely high. On the gods' continent there was an unwritten rule, and that was that they all thought that, other than the gods' continent, the other continents were all lowly and lowly continents, existences that were like ants. Hence, when she felt Yun Jian's divine energy that did not belong to the gods' continent, Jin Xiaofan looked at Yun Jian and sneered at her. Someone from such a lowly continent can actually be so beautiful? Xuanzhen was a playboy. He had been chasing after Huang Yan because she was beautiful. Now that he saw Yun Jian, his saliva almost flowed out. Little sister, what's your name? Which continent are you from? Even if you're from a lowly continent, it doesn't matter. Follow me and I'll make your continent the strongest existence among the tens of thousands of continents. How about it? Xuanzhen rubbed his hands and looked at Yun Jian. He wanted to move closer. When Huang Yan saw this, he kicked Xuanzhen's abdomen and said decisively, "Impudent. Do you know who is standing before you?" "I know. She's just a commoner from a lowly continent. No one would remember her even if she was trampled to death." Jin Xiaofan chuckled twice and sneered. "Jin Xiaofan, you've gone too far. So what if they're from the myriad continents? The gods of our gods' continent are stronger than them, but they can't bully the weak like this." Just as Jin Xiaofan finished speaking, a handsome man beside her spoke up. "Li Nong, why are you butting in? Whose side are you on?" When Jin Xiaofan heard this man's words, she roared at him. Then, she turned her gaze back to Yun Jian. Seeing Yun Jian looking at her, Jin Xiaofan raised her head and looked at Yun Jian. She said, "What are you looking at? If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being from a lowly continent. Even if I trample an ant like you to death, it won't matter. Because you're from a lowly continent." Jin Xiaofan emphasized the words, lowly continent. When Yun Jian heard Jin Xiaofan's words, she suddenly remembered something and said softly, "Jin family, Jin Zhengwen?" When Jin Xiaofan heard Yun Jian say the name of her father, the head of the Jin family, Jin Xiaofan was stunned. Then she said to Yun Jian, "What? You know my father? Don't think that I'll let you off just because you know my father's name. Lowly." Just as Jin Xiaofan said that, Yun Jian, who stood in front of the group, smirked and spoke with a smirk. "You're right." Chapter 1922. When Yun Jian was the sorcerer goddess, she had been to the deity's continent more than once. The deity's continent was indeed a sacred and inviolable place that all continents yearned for. At the same time, there were less than 10 people who could open the passage to the deity's continent, including the deities of the deity's continent. Therefore, the deity's continent was not only sacred in the eyes of the people, but it was also a place that many experts of the various continents wanted to reach. Of course, this was only for the people of the various continents. When Yun Jian was the sorcerer goddess, she could go whenever she wanted. Moreover, because she had maintained an underground relationship with the Sur God for 3 years, she had been to the deity's continent more than once. The deities of the deity's continent had a common point that everyone knew. That was, they thought that they were superior and thought that the people of the other continents were the lowest. Therefore, when Yun Jian came to the deity's continent as the sorcerer goddess, she had been despised by many deities. The deities of the deity's continent had always been arrogant, like proud peacocks. As long as people from the various continents came to the deities' continent, these deities would attack them. Although the deities of the deities' continent would not directly kill the people from the various continents, they would make it impossible for them to stay here. For example, the deities passing by would look at you with contempt or point at you with their companions and say, "This person is actually from the lowly continent." Of course, it was better to curse with words. Because the sorcerer goddess had once killed a deity of the deities' continent, the deities of the deities' continent regarded her as a mortal enemy. According to the deities of the deities' continent, it did not matter whether the deity killed by the sorcerer goddess had killed a man from the sorcerer tribe or raped a woman from the sorcerer tribe. To be killed and humiliated by their deities was an honor for the people from the lowly continent. However, as a person from the various continents, the sorcerer goddess was not allowed to kill a deity of the deities' continent. Therefore, when the sorcerer goddess came to the deities' continent again, in addition to the Sir God, the Master God, and the 5 great elders of the deities' continent, the 10 most powerful clans of the deities' continent joined forces to deal with her. The 10 most powerful clans of the deities' continent were so powerful that even the 5 great elders and the Master did not dare to provoke them. In this world, only divine lords were fearless. However, what the gods of the gods' continent did not expect was that the 10 heaven-defying clans of the gods' continent had joined forces to deal with the sorcerer god. This matter was already earth-shattering on the gods' continent. The 10 heaven-defying clans had joined forces to deal with the sorcerer god, giving him enough face. However, the deities had never expected that the top 10 families, which should have had the upper hand, would be fooled by the sorcerer god. The 10 great heaven-defying clans, the 10 great clans of the gods' continent, were almost annihilated by the sorcerer god. In the end, the patriarchs of the top 10 heaven-defying clans of the gods' continent knelt before the sorcerer god and begged for mercy. They slapped themselves hundreds of times, and the Master God came forward to beg for mercy on their behalf. Only then did the sorcerer god let them go. At that time, this matter had shaken the entire divine continent. The sorcerer god had also become the most feared figure in the gods' continent. Thus, when she heard the name Jin Zhangwen, Yun Jian recalled the Jin clan, which was ranked 3rd among the 10 great heaven-defying clans. That was why she said those words. Upon hearing Yun Jian's words, everyone was stunned. Especially Jin Zhenxiu. After hearing Yun Jian's words, Jin Zhenxiu was stunned. When she came back to her senses, she looked at Yun Jian and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? What annihilation? My Jin clan has always been powerful, and we are ranked 3rd among the 10 great heaven-defying clans of the gods' continent. When has there ever been annihilation?" Chapter 1923. Jin Zhenxiu opened her mouth and spat out water continuously. Her words were like the crowing of a chicken, as if she was afraid that outsiders would not know how powerful her Jin family was. Jin Xiuzhen's words were lowly continent. Not to mention Jin Xiuzhen herself, even Li Nong, who came out with Jin Xiuzhen and the others and spoke up for Yun Jian just now, could not stand it anymore. "Jin Xiuzhen, you're too much. My father said that everyone is equal. There is no distinction between high and low. You keep saying lowly continent. How noble can you be?" God Li Nong scolded Jin Xiuzhen. Li Nong looked delicate and pretty. When he spoke just now, there was a domineering aura between his brows. Yun Jian blinked and looked at Li Nong a few more times. It could be seen that this delicate and pretty young man was not in the same group as Jin Xiuzhen and the others. Yun Jian knew how much the gods of the gods' continent despised the people of the myriad continents. And this delicate and pretty young man standing up for her greatly exceeded Yun Jian's expectations. Because as a god speaking up for her, there was only one outcome for this young man. He would be ostracized by the other gods. "Li Nong, who exactly are you helping? Do you have any self-awareness as a god?" After the young man called Li Nong spoke up for Yun Jian just now, the group of people who were originally standing with Li Nong immediately looked at Li Nong with hatred. They even scolded Li Nong and Yun Jian together. "Li Nong, don't forget that your family is not even ranked in the top 10 heaven-defying families of the gods' continent. Believe it or not, once my Jin family makes a move, your family will be finished." Jin Xiuzhen glared at Li Nong with her bulging eyes and threatened. Li Nong was actually a very kind-hearted young man. The biggest difference between him and Jin Xiuzhen's group was probably that he did not come from a prominent family. Li Nong could walk with them because of his outstanding talent and spiritual power that was far stronger than his peers. Otherwise, with their different statuses and identities, why would Jin Xiaozhan's group be willing to hang out with Li Nong? It was precisely because Li Nong's spiritual energy was stronger than everyone present that Jin Xiaozhan's group had always treated Li Nong coldly. At this moment, seeing that Li Nong was actually helping Yun Jian, a person from a lowly continent, she was even more annoyed. I only stand on the side of reason. Hearing Jin Xiaozhan's threat, Li Nong clenched his fist and chose to stand on Yun Jian's side without hesitation. You are looking for a beating. Hearing Li Nong's words, Xuanzhen stepped forward and wanted to attack Li Nong. Xuanzhen was weak, but he was certain that Li Nong would not dare to attack him. However, just as Xuanzhen's fist was about to land on Li Nong's head, Yun Jian's figure flashed. Under everyone's gazes, she quickly arrived before Li Nong and sent Xuanzhen flying with a kick. Seeing this, Jin Zhenxiu and the others, who had thought that Yun Jian was weak, widened their eyes in shock. You dare to touch my disciple? Are you all looking to die? Yun Jian's eyes moved slightly and she suddenly spoke. Xuanzhen, who had been sent flying, Jin Zhenxiu, who was standing in place, and everyone else, after hearing Yun Jian's words, they were all stupefied. What? Disciple? Everyone present, including Huang Yan, was slightly stunned. They did not react for a long time. Li Nong was stunned. Looking at Yun Jian, he was also stupefied. I have taken a liking to you and want to take you as my disciple. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and said in front of the group of stupefied people. After a pause, Yun Jian added, I will not accept any rebuttal. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Li Nong was indeed stunned for a moment. He was different from Jin Zhenxiu's group. Although Li Nong was talented and was stronger than his peers, he did not have a master to guide him. The reason was that Li Nong's status in his family was too low. No one was willing to take him in. Otherwise, as a deity, Li Nong's strength would definitely not stop here. It was precisely because Yun Jian saw this point that she said this. Li Nong was only stunned for a moment before he immediately reacted. Somewhat overwhelmed by the favor, he nodded at Yun Jian and called out, Master! After Li Nong called out, Jin Zhenxiu and the others laughed until they held their bellies. After the laughter stopped, Jin Zhenxiu and the others looked at Li Nong and sneered. You really want to take this person from a lowly continent as your master? Li Nong, oh Li Nong, you are really disappointing. No wonder no one was willing to take you in as a disciple before. Jin Zhenxiu stared at Li Nong and continued to sneer. Do you think that we won't do anything to you just because you walked with us before? You actually dare to sing a different tune with us. Your family is going to be finished because of you. Li Nong clenched his fist. His strength was not bad, but he was not strong enough to deal with the Jin family alone. At this moment, Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Li Nong, raised a cold smile. In front of all the deities, she spoke with a tone full of protectiveness. Her words were directed at Jin Zhenxiu. I am a very protective person. You dare to threaten to destroy my disciple's family in front of me. Then I will return the same words to you. Chapter 1924. When Yun Jian uttered the words enter the underworld again, they were imprinted in everyone's ears. For a moment, they were in a trance. Again. Could it be that the Jin family was really like what Yun Jian said, that they were almost wiped out? Perhaps Yun Jian's words were too domineering, or perhaps Yun Jian's aura was too strong. The gods present did not react for a long time. Jin Zhenxiu and her group were not born 1,000 years ago, so they did not know that the witch god of the myriad continents had almost wiped out the 10 great clans of the gods' continent by himself. There were many powerful gods in the gods' continent who had endless lifespans. Obviously, Jin Zhenxiu and her group were still young. Back then, there were many who had witnessed the witch god almost wipe out the 10 great clans of the gods' continent. In the end, it was the master god who stepped forward to protect the 10 great clans. In addition, there were also many who had witnessed the masters of the 10 great clans kowtowing and apologizing to the witch god. However, this incident back then was recognized as a disgrace by the gods of the gods' continent. The gods were proud, and their dignity was not allowed to be challenged by anyone. Therefore, no one would talk about this matter, let alone tell their descendants about it. This also led to the new generation, such as Jin Zhenxiu and her group, not knowing about the witch god. Of course, the gods who had witnessed the witch god's battle achievements 1,000 years ago were still alive. It was just that the witch god had disappeared for so many years, so they chose to treat it as if the witch god had never appeared. Looking at Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and even Li Nong, they had never heard of the Jin family being almost wiped out. Although Li Nong did not understand, he still chose to believe in his master, who he felt was right at first glance. As for Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and the others, after hearing Yunjian's words, they laughed until their legs were about to go soft. Ha ha ha. Enter the underworld again? You're too immersed in the act. You're making me think that something happened to our Jin family in the past. I'm going to die of laughter. Jin Zhenxiu suddenly held her stomach and laughed with the people who were with her. As she laughed, Jin Zhenxiu suddenly stopped laughing. She pursed her lips and glared at Yunjian with a look of disdain, as if she was looking at a barking dog. A lowly human from a lowly continent is indeed different. You even have delusions. It's time for you to get treated. As she spoke, Jin Zhenxiu waved her hand disdainfully at her companions. All right, let's not talk to these lowly people. Let's go. Upon hearing Jin Zhenxiu's words, Yunjian narrowed her eyes and curled her lips coldly. Just as she was about to speak, Jin Zhenxiu interrupted her. The voice of a person hurriedly running over from afar reached everyone's ears. Oh no, oh no! A magical beast has appeared in the demonic forest in the west. It can be said to be the strongest magical beast that has ever appeared in history. Which of your families went to the demonic forest today to hunt for magical beasts? I heard that they were all seriously injured. I just heard that several patriarchs of the top 10 heaven-defying families were seriously injured and were still unable to subdue this magical beast. Someone has already gone to the temple for help. Quickly go and take a look at your patriarch's injuries. As soon as this person spoke, the crowd's initial calmness turned into panic. What? My father is bringing his disciples to the demonic forest today to hunt for magical beasts. Jin Zhenxiu's face turned green when she heard this. She took the lead and ran towards the demonic forest. Many of the families present had gone to the demonic forest, so one by one, they ran over. My brother is also going to the demonic forest today. Master, don't go. It's dangerous there. As he spoke, Li Nong was about to run in that direction. We're going too. Upon hearing this, Yunjian and Huang Yan followed. Yunjian was very gratified that her new disciple was so considerate of her. Chapter 1925. Magical beasts existed in the various continents as well as the gods' continent. If one were to ask what a magical beast was, using the most appropriate analogy, it would be the wild beasts on Earth. However, although magical beasts were similar to the wild beasts on Earth, such as the tiger and the lion, there were differences. Magical beasts were stronger and more valiant than wild beasts. And the most essential difference was that the magical beasts on the continent also had spiritual power and could cultivate. Just like the cultivators on the continent, magical beasts could also cultivate and advance. In fact, all living things cherished each other. For example, although the people on Earth could not use spiritual power, there were no magical beasts on Earth that could use spiritual power. Another example was that the gods on the gods' continent could use powerful spiritual power, and the magical beasts on the gods' continent were not the wild beasts on Earth that were weak to the gods. To use the most descriptive analogy, when the people on Earth encountered wild beasts, the gods on the gods' continent would be as scared as when they encountered magical beasts. A powerful demonic beast could kill a group of powerful gods. Of course, magical beasts were the same as the wild beasts on Earth. There were also powerful and weak types. As for the specifics, there was no need to introduce them one by one. At that time, Yunjian and Huang Yan followed Li Nong closely and quickly arrived at the demon forest in the west. The demon forest was a large forest in the west of the gods' continent. In the demon forest, there were many powerful magical beasts that lived and moved about. Generally, if they wanted to train the strength of their descendants, the family heads would personally lead everyone to the demon forest and other places to hunt magical beasts. However, because of a place like the demon forest, a powerful magical beast might appear. If they encountered it, then the descendants who went to hunt the magical beast would very likely be wiped out. Therefore, in order to prevent such a situation from happening, the family heads would personally lead their descendants there. However, what they did not expect today was that a huge magical beast that was as tall as a 3-story building suddenly appeared in the demon forest. Moreover, the level of the magical beast was so high that the family heads were no match for it even if they joined hands. This was the most powerful magical beast that had appeared in the history of the gods' continent. Yun Jian and Huang Yan followed Li Nong and came here. What they saw was such a scene. A large baboon that was as tall as a 3-story building, taller than the trees in the infernal forest, was fighting with a few injured patriarchs. Yun Jian glanced around and saw a few familiar figures. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and crossed her arms. They were really old acquaintances. He hadn't seen them for thousands of years. 1,000 years ago, these people had knelt in front of him and begged for mercy while kowtowing and apologizing. Long time no see, patriarch of the 10 great heaven-defying clans. It has been over 1,000 years. But it was still the same. Weak. He was too weak to even stand a gust of wind. If Yun Jian were to be heard by others, they would probably gape at her and accuse her of being self-righteous. The patriarchs of the 10 great heaven-defying clans were all very powerful. Their strength was only second to the 5 great elders of the gods' continent. How could they be like what she said? Too weak to stand up to the wind? Brother! Li Nong suddenly saw the baboon turn its head and raise its foot. The baboon revealed a sinister smile and was about to step on a handsome man who was lying on the ground with serious injuries. This step would definitely turn the handsome man into minced meat. When Li Nong saw this, he did not hesitate at all and was about to rush forward. However, just as he was about to rush forward, he was slapped away by a force. Seeing the baboon step on the handsome man, although Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and the others did not care, their hearts still tightened. The other family heads also saw this scene. At that moment, their expressions changed. However, just when everyone thought that the handsome man would be trampled into minced meat in the next second, a small and perfect figure blocked in front of the handsome man. Was she crazy? Seeing Yun Jian's action, everyone present was so scared that their faces turned pale. Chapter 1926. This baboon was 3 stories tall, and its arms and legs were as strong as iron walls. Just looking at it made people feel fear. This baboon was so powerful that no one could save the handsome man lying not far away from it. Now that all the patriarchs were seriously injured, they did not have the mood to save him at all. The handsome man lying on the ground had obviously fought with the baboon just now and was seriously injured. He probably did not even have the strength to stand up now. The baboon's foot, which was as strong as an iron wall, could trample the handsome man into meat paste. This was not an exaggeration at all. Master! Seeing that Yun Jian had rushed over in his place, Li Nong's first reaction was not to think that Yun Jian was powerful and should have taken on this for him, nor was he to feel grateful. Instead, he was angry. He was angry that he had been pushed away by Yun Jian just now and had let Yun Jian take the risk for him. Regardless of whether Yun Jian was powerful or not, Li Nong felt that he should not have let Yun Jian take the risk for him. Trample her to death. Big baboon, trample her to death. Trample the 2 of them to death. Seeing Li Nong like that, Jin Zhenxiu suddenly shouted at the baboon, thinking of the traitor Li Nong who had helped Yun Jian and not her just now. The magical beasts on the continent were all intelligent. They could understand what humans were saying. There were even some species of magical beasts that could speak human language and transform into humans when their strength reached a certain level. The baboon could understand Jin Zhenxiu's words. It suddenly moved its foot and went in the opposite direction, fiercely attacking the other patriarchs. This baboon's brain was very developed. After it attacked the patriarchs, it suddenly attacked Jin Zhenxiu and the others. Ah! Didn't I tell you to kill them? Ah! Jin Zhenxiu and the others saw this and ran away in fear. Beast! How dare you hurt my daughter? Go to hell! Just as Jin Zhenxiu and the others were in danger, a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s with medium short hair and plain facial features used his fastest speed to block the attack of the large baboon that was about to attack Jin Zhenxiu. This middle-aged man was Jin Zhenxiu's father. At the same time, he was also the patriarch of the Jin family, ranked 3rd among the top 10 families of Yulong continent, Jin Zhengwen. Jin Zhengwen blocked the baboon's foot. His forehead was already sweating and his whole body was trembling. Ha! Vengwen, let us help you. The family heads who had been fighting the baboon with Jin Zhengwen all rushed over to help. Jin Zhengwen and the others, Jin Zhenxiu and Xuanzhen, could not help but complain. Heavens, this is the first time we've seen the strength of the patriarchs. It's too frightening, too powerful. The patriarchs of the top 10 heaven-defying clans of the gods' continent live up to their names. Do your best, family heads. In an instant, the crowd went from being shocked at the beginning to cheering. But just as the crowd was cheering, the baboon suddenly turned around and stomped on Yunjian, the handsome man, and Li Nong, who had just run over to help the handsome man up and was about to let Yunjian leave with him. The patriarchs did not have time to react. They could only watch as the baboon's foot, which was like an iron wall, stomped on Yunjian, the handsome man, and Li Nong. Yunjian, on the other hand, did not move at all. But just as the baboon's foot was about to land, and everyone thought that Yunjian had been scared out of her wits, Yunjian suddenly looked up. She curled her lips slightly in front of everyone's faces and looked coldly at the baboon. She said coldly, "Beast, recognize who is standing in front of you." Seeing Yunjian like this, the crowd in the distance thought to themselves, "Is this girl stupid? Will the beast listen to her when she talks to it like this?" Her words would only provoke the beast's anger. Just as everyone thought that Yunjian and the other two were done for, the baboon suddenly knelt down in front of Yunjian, trembling, as if it had seen a figure from its terrifying memory. Chapter 1927. The most powerful demonic beast in history actually knelt before someone who was not a god and came from a lowly continent. Everyone present was dumbfounded. How is this possible? Why did that demonic beast kneel before her? That's impossible. How is this possible? Oh my God! What the hell is going on? Seeing this, some people began to shout in panic. What the hell is going on? Regardless of the situation of the demonic beasts from other continents, one must know that the gods of the gods' continent were very proud. Correspondingly, the demonic beasts of the gods' continent were also very arrogant. Many times, the demonic beasts of the gods' continent were even more arrogant than the gods. Those demonic beasts were existences that were unwilling to lower their heads even before they were killed. And today, because of Yunjian's shout at the demonic beast, this giant baboon that had forced the patriarchs of the top 10 families to retreat to that state was the most powerful demonic beast in history. It actually knelt before her. Moreover, after the giant baboon knelt before Yunjian, it even shrunk its huge body. Looking at Yunjian's expression, it was obvious that the giant baboon had seen something that terrified it. Otherwise, given the giant baboon's self-esteem and arrogance, it would never kneel before Yunjian. At this moment, Jin Zhenxiu, who had witnessed this scene, opened her mouth wide. Her facial expression was dilated to the extreme, and she was in deep disbelief. The others in Jin Zhenxiu's group were not any better. Especially Xuanzhen, whose expression was the most complicated. As for the people in Jin Zhenxiu's group, the expressions on their faces were too many to be described with words. Other than Jin Zhenxiu, all the injured patriarchs and disciples present at the scene all revealed terrified expressions at this moment. The scene suddenly became so quiet that even the sound of breathing could be heard. No one could maintain their usual expression at this moment. However, at this critical moment, the patriarch of the Jin family, Jin Zhangwen, led the group of patriarchs beside him and stood in front of Yunjian. "Who are you?" Jin Zhangwen looked at Yunjian and asked with a frown. "The aura emanating from her body. She's not a god of our god's continent. She should be from a lowly continent." Someone sensed the aura emitting from Yunjian's body and pointed at Yunjian to invite the patriarchs to praise her. The myriad continents were considered lowly continents by the deities of the god's continent. Someone from the lowly continent? Hearing this, all the patriarchs frowned. How could a person from a lowly continent make our god's continent's most powerful magical beast so afraid of her? The few patriarchs still hadn't realized Yunjian's identity. Instead, they were getting more and more confused. Even in their god's continent, there was only one person who could make this magical beast so afraid. Lord Divine Lord was the only one who could do it. There was only one person in the noble god's continent who could do this. How could a person from a lowly continent make a powerful magical beast afraid? Old fogies, long time no see. I'm sure you've all forgotten about me. Just as the patriarchs were puzzled, Yunjian suddenly narrowed her eyes and looked at the patriarchs as she spoke softly. "You know us." The patriarchs hadn't reacted yet and asked Yunjian in a daze. "Of course I know you. Strictly speaking, we're old friends." Yunjian curled her lips. After saying this in front of everyone who was completely unaware of the situation, Yunjian's curled lips immediately disappeared. She looked at the patriarchs with a cold expression. The next second, the words that came out of Yunjian's mouth made these patriarchs turn pale with fright. In front of everyone, their bodies trembled violently. It's only been a few thousand years since we last met, and you've all forgotten about me. Or was the lesson I gave you 1,000 years ago too light, so? Chapter 1928. At first, the family heads were still guessing about Yunjian's identity. Everyone present, including the family heads, did not understand why this magical baboon would kneel down to Yunjian, who came from a lowly continent. After all, this magical baboon was something that even the family heads of the top 10 families of the deity's continent could not handle together. Magical beasts were born arrogant, especially powerful magical beasts. That innate arrogance was something that no one could erase. But this young girl from a lowly continent could actually make such a powerful baboon kneel down to her. This already made the family heads feel incredulous. However, at this moment, Yunjian said those words just now. My witch god? Which god? The family heads were slightly stunned. The figure that made them tremble in fear in their memories overlapped with the arrogant young girl standing in front of them. You are. One of the family heads of the top 10 families suddenly pointed his finger at Yunjian. His round eyes widened as he stared at Yunjian in shock. His whole body trembled violently. The family head of the Jin family, Jin Zhengwen, and the other family heads standing around had the same expression as this family head. They looked at Yunjian as if they had seen a ferocious beast in the river. Recalling that arrogant figure in their memories, they were so scared that their faces turned ashen. She was. Yulong continent's Wu. God. That young girl from a myriad of continents who had once forced the top 10 families of the deity's continent to the brink of annihilation by herself. The family heads present would never forget the scene of them kneeling in front of the witch god from a Yulong continent, slapping their own faces while kowtowing and begging for mercy. At the thought of that scene, the family heads were so scared that their souls almost left their bodies. Why was the witch god here? The family heads were so scared that their faces turned pale and their whole bodies trembled. Compared to the magical baboon kneeling in front of Yunjian, they were not inferior at all. First, the magical baboon knelt in front of Yunjian, trembling in fear. Then, after the patriarchs heard Yunjian's words, their faces turned pale with fright, their lips and teeth trembled uncontrollably. Xuanzhen, Jin Zhenxiu and the others who were standing in the distance were all stunned. The surrounding disciples were also stunned. Even Li Nong and Huang Yan sucked in a breath of air. This was the first time Xuanzhen, Jin Zhenxiu, Li Nong, and the others had heard of the god of sorcerer, and they had never heard of such a person. What shocked them was that the giant magical beast and the patriarchs were actually scared after hearing Yunjian's words. What was going on? Father, you are the patriarch of the Jin clan, which is ranked third among the 10 supreme heaven-defying clans of the gods' continent. Why do you act like you are afraid of this woman from a lowly continent? She's just talkative and pretentious. She thinks she's great. Humph. My sorcerer god? I don't care what kind of sorcerer god you are. Don't think that just because you added the word god in your name, you are really a god. She's just a lowly slave from a lowly continent. Jin Zhenxiu was undoubtedly the most arrogant existence among the gods. She would not allow anyone to be more dazzling than her. In addition, other than the patriarchs, most of the people present did not know about the earth-shattering things that the sorcerer god had done in the gods' continent. Hence, Jin Zhenxiu blurted out these words in front of everyone. However, before Jin Zhenxiu could finish speaking, Jin Zhengwen was so frightened that he suddenly shouted at Jin Zhenxiu. Zhenxiu, what are you talking about? Shut up. Jin Zhengwen was so frightened that he turned to look at Yunjian. He was afraid that Yunjian would be angered by his stupid daughter's words. When Jin Zhenxiu heard this, she became even angrier. She was about to continue speaking when she saw a patriarch standing beside Jin Zhengwen. He was afraid that Jin Zhenxiu would say something irreversible. This patriarch recalled the things that had once terrified them, but they had to say it. In front of Jin Zhenxiu and the others, he explained in fear. What do you mean by she's from a lowly continent? Do you know what kind of existence the sorcerer god is? 1,000 years ago,
All the members of the 10 heaven-defying clans of the gods' continent were no match for her alone.
Chapter 1929.
When the family head who stepped forward to explain spoke, his eyes widened, and his body trembled slightly. It was as if he had recalled something that terrified him beyond words. To the family heads of the 10 great families, what happened back then was a disgrace and a nightmare.
Disgrace. The 10 great families joined forces to deal with the sorcerer goddess, but they still ended up in a sorry state. Nightmare.
Ever since then, the 10 great families would be scared out of their wits whenever they heard the words, sorcerer goddess.
Hence, the gods who knew about this back then had never mentioned it to their descendants. It was a disgrace, and they did not dare to do so. When the family head finished speaking, Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and the others suddenly recalled what Yun Jian had said in the morning. She said that she had let Jin Zhengwen off back then. She did not expect his descendant to be so arrogant and despotic. Could it be that the Jin family was itching for a beating? Had they forgotten the calamity that destroyed their family? When they heard Yun Jian's words, Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and the others thought that Yun Jian had lost her mind. They had never heard that the Jin family, one of the top 10 heaven-defying families, had ever suffered a calamity of extermination. Just now, the family head had indirectly confirmed what Yun Jian had said earlier. Not to mention whether the Jin family had ever been destroyed. The sorcerer goddess, who was also Yun Jian, had almost destroyed the 10 great families. Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and the others who knew the truth were so frightened that their faces turned pale. How could this be true? This truth was too shocking. Hence, not only Jin Zhenxiu, Xuanzhen, and the others, but even Li Nong, who was standing beside Yun Jian, and the surrounding disciples were so shocked that their mouths were agape. She's just someone from a lowly continent. Jin Zhenxiu's eyes widened in disbelief as she muttered those words to herself. It had to be said that Jin Zhenxiu was truly stupid. Rebellious girl. Shut up. Jin Zhengwen, who was standing not far away from Jin Zhenxiu, saw that Jin Zhenxiu still dared to speak like that. He stepped forward and slapped Jin Zhenxiu's face. Then, Jin Zhengwen turned his head and looked at Yun Jian. He hurriedly bowed and apologized while trembling. Lord Sorcerer Goddess, please be magnanimous. Please don't hold this rebellious girl against her. I'm not old. When Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Jin Zhengwen, heard Jin Zhengwen's words, she suddenly curved her beautiful lips. After a pause, she continued, "That's why I'm not as magnanimous as you say." At this point, Yun Jian's face suddenly darkened. She stopped smiling and turned her upper body to face Jin Zhengwen. Her cold words once again reached everyone's ears. This is not the first time she has challenged my authority. According to the rules of the sorcerer god, I will naturally release your daughter. I will remove her and the Jin family from the god's continent. It had to be said that Yun Jian was very arrogant. When they heard the words that came out of her mouth, the people around her sucked in a breath. However, at that very moment, no one dared to utter a single word, much less speak. However, at this moment, from the opposite side of the demonic forest, a tall man with perfect facial features, who was so handsome that even gods and men would be enraged by him, walked over. Divine Lord. Lord Divine Lord had come. Divine Lord. Someone noticed the man and exclaimed excitedly. Just now, Yun Jian had been in charge of the situation. As the people present were not as strong as her, they did not even dare to utter a single word. However, when they saw Lord Divine Lord walking over, not only the people around him, but even the Jin family head seemed to see hope. Divine Lord. Divine Lord, please uphold justice for our Jin family. This woman called the sorcerer god said that she would destroy our Jin family. Our Jin family has been loyal to the god's palace for thousands of years. You must uphold justice for our Jin family. Jin Zhengwen rolled his eyes and ran to Ce, who was walking over, and knelt down to beg for help. He changed sides on the spot. When all the family heads saw Lord Divine Lord, who rarely appeared before them, they felt as if they had seen their savior. They cried and complained to Ce about Yun Jian's actions. Everyone thought that since Lord Divine Lord had appeared, the sorcerer god should scram back to her god's continent. However, to everyone's surprise, Ce glanced at Jin Zhengwen, who was kneeling in front of him, and kicked Jin Zhengwen to the side. He walked over to Yun Jian and hugged her beautiful shoulders in front of everyone. Then, he said expressionlessly to the people who were complaining about Yun Jian's actions. Chapter 1930. What did the Lord Divine Lord mean? When everyone saw this scene, their first reaction was shock. Then, their mouths fell open and their pupils constricted. They suddenly realized the meaning behind Si's words, and their faces turned ashen. The Lord Divine Lord of the Gods continent was also the ruler of the Gods continent. Everyone knew that the Lord Divine Lord was invincible. Unfortunately, as the ruler of the Gods continent, the Lord Divine Lord rarely appeared in public. Even though the baboon, the most powerful magical beast recorded in history, had appeared in the demonic forest today, and someone had gone to the temple to seek help, no one expected the Lord Divine Lord to appear. At most, the 5 elders and the Lord Divine Lord would come. Si's arrival was already unbelievable to everyone present. But what was even more unexpected was that he actually walked over to Yun Jian and put his arm around her shoulder, and said such words in public. What did this mean? It meant that the Lord Divine Lord and the Sorcerer Goddess, the two of them. Jin Zhengwen was so shocked by this sudden turn of events that his face turned pale. His eyes rolled back, and he almost died on the spot. Have you ever experienced despair? Jin Zhengwen was experiencing it now. Even a fool could see that Yun Jian and Ce had one leg. The Lord Divine Lord and the Sorcerer Goddess. And from the Lord Divine Lord's words, it was clear who Ce was helping at this moment. Hence, everyone present was dumbfounded. Who could tell them what was going on? Io, my son, why are you running so fast? Your daughter-in-law won't run away. Why don't you wait for your old father? At this moment, a figure flashed in front of everyone's eyes as fast as lightning. In the next second, the old Lord Divine Lord appeared in front of everyone. Daughter-in-law. Hearing the old Lord Divine Lord's words, Jin Zhengwen did not even know how to describe his current shock. It was as if he had seen the end of the Jin family, and he spoke in a daze. Obviously, the old Lord Divine Lord knew Jin Zhengwen. After hearing Jin Zhengwen's words, the old Lord Divine Lord replied, That's right, haha. I have a daughter-in-law. And my daughter-in-law is my little disciple. How is it? Isn't it amazing? In the beginning, everyone was stunned because the Sorcerer Goddess was actually the daughter-in-law of the Master God, which was also the daughter-in-law of the Lord God. At this moment, everyone's astonishment could not be described with words. She is also your disciple? Don't you only have one disciple? Jin Zhengwen had never been so frightened in his life. At this moment, he was so frightened that he couldn't use words to describe his shock. Shoo shoo shoo, who said that I only have one disciple? Didn't I just take in a little disciple? Come, little cutie Sorcerer Goddess, come over here. The old Master God was not happy with Jin Zhengwen's words. He pushed Jin Zhengwen away and walked towards Yun Jian with a smile. Ce frowned when he saw that the old Master God wanted to snatch her away from him. He hugged Yun Jian a little tighter as he cast a sharp glance at the old Master God. When Ce glanced at him, the old Master God shrank back and didn't dare to walk over. That's right. The daughter-in-law is my son's. I can't be a third wheel. This was not cowardice. That was the main point. When Jin Zhengwen, who was standing not far from Yun Jian, heard the old Master God's words, he sat on the ground as if paralyzed and gave up struggling. If he had offended the Sorcerer Goddess and the Lord God was willing to help him, there would still be hope. But now, not only had the Sorcerer Goddess become the Lord God's woman, but she had also become the Master God's disciple. Back then, the Sorcerer Goddess had not exterminated the 10 great clans because the Master God had pleaded for mercy for the family heads. But today, the Jin family had offended the Sorcerer Goddess again. In addition, the Master God was the most protective. The Jin family was finished. Just as he thought about it, someone who was the most protective of Yun Jian wrapped his arm around Yun Jian's shoulder and glared at Jin Zhengwen coldly, speaking up in front of everyone. From today onwards, the Jin family will be removed from the 10 great clans. After that, Ce half-hugged Yun Jian and glanced around. His mellow and pleasant voice spread throughout the area. Everyone here, listen up. On the God's continent, my woman is the queen. Whoever dares to offend her will be going against the Lord God. Chapter 1931. The Godhead was the source of life for the gods on the gods' continent. Any god whose godhead was abolished would be a walking corpse even if they were still alive in this world. Ce's words made all the gods turn pale with fright. Abolishing their godheads was even more unacceptable than killing them directly. The Divine Lord was willing to go to such lengths to protect the sorcerer goddess. Everyone at the scene was terrified. "Count me in. If anyone dares to bully my cute sorcerer goddess, I'll pull out your tendons and skin you alive," the old main god said after Ce finished speaking. The moment the old main god finished speaking, the people around him trembled. On the gods' continent, strength was a symbol of status. The Divine Lord's words were like an imperial edict. Because the Divine Lord was the most powerful being on the gods' continent. Hence, after knowing the relationship between the sorcerer goddess and the Divine Lord, the gods present did not dare to do anything to Yun Jian. At this moment, Jin Zhenxiu was completely dumbfounded. She sat on the ground stupidly and didn't stand up. She kept shaking her head, and shaking her head again. Impossible. How could this be? How could she be the Divine Lord's wife? The Divine Lord's disciple? After Ce finished speaking, he grabbed Yun Jian's waist and tore open the space. He brought Yun Jian into the space and returned to the temple in an instant. The next thing to do was to clean up the Jin family and deal with the giant baboon. Since the Divine Lord's 4 great guardians were not around, the Divine Lord was the one to deal with them. Yun Jian, who was being half-hugged by Ce, had just returned to her room when Ce pressed her against a table and kissed her for a long time. Ce's strength was so strong that he could tear open the space and bring someone to another place in a few seconds. Hence, Yun Jian was not surprised by Ce's actions. However, Ce's actions now scared Yun Jian. He pressed Yun Jian against the table and kissed her. He even wanted to lift her leg. "Don't!" Just as Yun Jian thought that Ce was going to do something to her, Ce let go of her. Licking his lips, Ce savored the lingering taste of her beauty after tasting it just now. With a hand in her hair, he looked into her eyes and said, "You're right. Xiao Jian, pack up. Let's go out." Thinking that Ce was going to do something to her, Yun Jian, who was still looking forward to saying, "Don't," blushed instantly. She was the one who had misunderstood. She did not dare to look at him. "Where are we going?" "To my mother's place." Ce's gaze flickered as his voice softened. The Divine Lord of the gods' continent had a mother. When Ce's mother's eyes, Yun Jian could see the anticipation in his eyes. Yun Jian knew that back on Earth, Ce only remembered fragments of his memories as a Divine Lord. Back then, he did not know that he had a mother when he was a Divine Lord. Ce's father on Earth, on the other hand, was a dispensable existence. Yun Jian had experienced life without parents and living alone. She could also see Ce's yearning for maternal love from his gaze. Perhaps everything was interconnected. When Ce was a Divine Lord, he did not experience much maternal love. The old god and Ce's mother were not in love, but due to various reasons, they gave birth to a Divine Lord, Ce. After giving birth, Ce's mother left, only returning to check on Ce occasionally. It was obvious that she was worried about him. Chapter 1932. Just as she thought of this, Ce was already holding her hand. After a 5-hour journey, they arrived at his mother's house. Don't ask why Ce didn't use his ability to instantly tear through space and travel anywhere. As a man who had just had sex, he naturally wanted to show Yun Jian the scenery of the gods' continent along the way. Then, he would drag her to the forest for a stroll. And do some naughty things while he was at it. Yun Jian felt that ever since Ce had had sex, anywhere would become his battlefield. Yun Jian felt that she would die of embarrassment under him sooner or later. When they arrived at the Bailey family, Ce held Yun Jian's hand nervously. The Bailey family was Ce's mother's family. This was the first time Ce came to see his mother after he regained his memories as a god lord. The last time they met was probably a few thousand years ago. Bailey's surname reminded Yun Jian of Expert Bailey. Wasn't Expert Bailey her master's name on Earth? Bailey is my mother's surname. That old man would call himself mother's surname when he went out to cheat. Ce didn't need to look to know what Yun Jian was thinking. He explained. Yun Jian nodded. This seemed like her master's style.
When the Master God was on earth, he had done this more than once. He had even worshipped a master when he was on earth. This was the reason why the Master God's fellow disciples on earth had come to deal with Yun Jian. Playfulness was a very prominent characteristic of the Master God. Creak. Before CE could knock, the door opened. When the young man who opened the door saw CE, he exclaimed in surprise, "Lord God is here. Your mother is in her courtyard. She has been waiting for you for a few thousand years." CE nodded at the young man. Then, he pulled Yun Jian towards his mother's courtyard. Obviously, this young man wasn't young. On the God's continent, one had to remember that one's age could not be determined by one's appearance. Yun Jian had just been dragged by CE to her mother's backyard when she saw a woman in her 20s sitting at a stone table in the yard. There were a few men standing beside her. It was obvious that this woman in her 20s was CE's mother. The men standing beside CE's mother were undoubtedly CE's brothers. The moment she saw CE and Yun Jian, CE's mother stood up immediately. "You're here?" CE's mother asked CE. CE's mother's name was Bailey Yen. Bailey Yen usually wouldn't call CE by her name as it sounded distant. However, her motherly love for CE was naturally not lacking. "Yes, mother." CE nodded at Bailey Yen. Then, he pulled Yun Jian over. Yun Jian blinked when she saw that CE's mother was so young. "Is this the sweetheart that you kept mentioning to me 1,000 years ago?" CE's mother glanced at Yun Jian with a smile. "Yes." CE nodded. "Sir God, you haven't been here for a long time. Come, let's go and play a game of chess." One of the men standing beside Bailey Yen grabbed CE's shoulder and dragged CE out with a few other men. "Don't worry. I was just about to have a chat with this young lady." Bailey Yen smiled at Yun Jian and said to CE. When CE saw this, he relaxed and allowed them to take him away. Yun Jian suddenly felt a little nervous. When she had first met CE's mother, CE had been around. However, now that CE had been taken away, she was alone with his mother. Would she not like him? "Young lady, don't be nervous. That child often mentions you to me." Bailey Yen reached out to hold Yun Jian's hand and patted Yun Jian's hand. Bailey Yen might look young, but she was very mature on the inside. When Yun Jian saw this, she nodded. After chatting for a while, Yun Jian was no longer nervous. Bailey Yen was a very gentle woman. Yun Jian knew this very well. After CE left, Bailey Yen kept asking Yun Jian questions. After they were done, Bailey Yen suddenly looked around. When she saw that there was no one around, she suddenly leaned over to Yun Jian's ear and whispered a question to Yun Jian. Chapter 1933. When Yun Jian first met CE's mother, Bailey Yen, she felt that she was a very gentle, elegant, and noble woman. She was like the daughter of a real rich family, well-mannered, and reasonable. Of course, Yun Jian still felt the same way about Bailey Yen now. However, Bailey Yen's sudden question stunned Yun Jian. Then, her face suddenly turned red. How could she answer this question? Seeing that Yun Jian's face suddenly turned red, Bailey Yen laughed. She had a feeling that she knew everything. She patted Yun Jian's hand and didn't force Yun Jian to answer. "Good child, I know everything. Don't be shy. I've been there before." With that, Bailey Yen looked at Yun Jian expectantly and said, "Now you're my daughter-in-law now. Now that you're my daughter-in-law, you have to call me mother. Otherwise, I won't let that stinking brat take you away." Bailey Yen spoke to Yun Jian with a smile. That brat was naturally referring to CE. Yun Jian looked at Bailey Yen. She felt warm in her heart. Finally, she pursed her red lips and called out to Bailey Yen, "Mother!" In the God's continent, mothers were usually addressed as mother. They had to address their elders respectfully like father, mother, and so on. When Yun Jian called out to her, Bailey Yen's smile became even more obvious. Although Bailey Yen rarely went to the temple after giving birth to CE with the Lord God, as a mother, Bailey Yen's maternal love for CE was the same as that of an ordinary mother. In her previous life, after the Lord God fell in love with the sorcerer god, he mentioned this to Bailey Yen more than once. Bailey Yen had long wanted to see what this girl looked like and what kind of person she was. She wanted to see how this monk, who didn't like any other woman,
was like. And it was proven that Bailey Yen fell in love with Yun Jian the moment she saw Yun Jian. She pulled Yun Jian aside and said a lot of things. She even asked such a shameful question. In some aspects, Bailey Yen was very similar to a sovereign. For example, the Lord God would be serious once in a while. Usually, he would smile mischievously. Bailey Yen, on the other hand, was usually serious. Only in front of someone who caught her eye would she ask such a shy question like just now. As they talked, Yun Jian gradually became familiar with Bailey Yen. Bailey Yen was not like Yun Jian when they first met. She was so elegant and noble that she did not want to talk to people. On the contrary, Bailey Yen could say anything. After chatting with Bailey Yen for a long time, Yun Jian fell in love with this gentle and sometimes gossipy woman. When Ce returned, this was the scene that greeted her. Bailey Yen leaned close to Yun Jian's ear and whispered something. Yun Jian's whole face turned red, and even her ears were red. F***ck you brat. You want to run away after winning so many rounds against us? Come back and continue. The men who dragged Ce away to play chess chased after Ce here. Ce had already pulled Yun Jian up and told Bailey Yen, "Mother, we'll go back to the temple first." In the past, Ce would leave after a short visit. Bailey Yen was used to it. It was rare to meet a daughter-in-law like Yun Jian today, so Bailey Yen stood up to ask her to stay. "Why are you leaving so soon? I still have a lot to ask Xiao Jian." Bailey Yen had already addressed Yun Jian affectionately. Ce raised a brow. "I'll ask next time. Let's go." Ce held Yun Jian's hand and rejected Bailey Yan's request to stay. Taking 2 steps out of the Bailey residence with Yun Jian, Ce turned to look at Bailey Yen and said, "Or you can come to the temple." With that, Ce pulled Yun Jian and left without looking back. Yun Jian did not even have the time to bid farewell. "This brat. He's exactly the same as that old man. Do you think I would steal his wife?" Bailey Yen, who stood where she was, gritted her teeth at the thought of the Lord God. She immediately recalled the Lord God's annoying face. Everyone knew that Bailey Yen did not go to the temple often because she did not want to see the old man. As for the specific reason, only the Lord God and Bailey Yen knew. At the same time, Yun Jian was being pulled back to the temple by Ce. "What did Mother secretly say to you just now?" Ce asked out of curiosity. Ce lowered her head to glance at Yun Jian as she spoke, but what she saw was Yun Jian blushing. Even the tips of his ears were red, as if he had done something bad. Yun Jian thought that Ce's mother was just gossipy, but she did not expect that. Cough, cough. What she secretly said to her just now was, Chapter 1934. Looking at Yun Jian's reaction, Ce knew that his mother must have said something terrible to her. Although Bailey Yen gave people the feeling that she was gentle, elegant, and very noble, in fact, Bailey Yen had a belly full of bad ink. Ce knew that Xiao Jian was feeling shy. He did not continue the conversation and held Yun Jian's hand as they walked back to the temple. It was a long journey back to the temple from the Bailey residence. Ce led Yun Jian on a leisurely journey. They looked at the scenery along the way, the gods that passed by, and they took a stroll in the woods while they were at it. Ce had wanted to take advantage of Yun Jian in the woods, but just as he kissed Yun Jian's irresistible lips, someone passed by in the woods. Before the person passed by, Ce wrapped his arm around Yun Jian's slim waist and pressed Yun Jian behind a tree. The tree was large enough to block Ce and Yun Jian from the other 2 passers-by. Both of them talked as they walked, but Ce did not think that they were passing by. He was nibbling on Yun Jian's red lips with his head lowered. It was then that the duo's conversation caught Yun Jian's attention. "Did you see them just now?" someone asked. "See what?" the other person asked. "The group of people who passed by us just now. They were all wearing black robes with only their eyes exposed. They looked like they were going to annihilate a family. It's none of your business if they like to dress that way, is it? But the direction they're heading to seems to be where the temple is. Let's go, let's go. Lord God is at the temple. What can happen? It's not like Lord God isn't at the temple. Even if their target is really the temple, minor gods like us can't help." Their voices traveled further and further. It was only when the duo left that Yun Jian and Ce looked at each other. Black-robed men?
A subordinate of the mysterious man? Even though Yun Jian had recovered the memory of the witch god, she still had no memory of the mysterious man's appearance. The mysterious man and his subordinates, the group of black-robed men, all wore black robes from the beginning to the end. Their bodies were tightly wrapped, only revealing a pair of black eyes. As for his appearance, Yun Jian and Ce had never seen him before. After the two men left, Ce frowned. Yun Jian suddenly had a bad feeling. Just as she was thinking this, Ce suddenly said, "Let's go back to the temple." As he spoke, he grabbed Yun Jian's hand and tore open the space before him with his other hand. In an instant, he brought Yun Jian back to the entrance of the temple. Boom! Rumble! At the same time, just as Ce and Yun Jian arrived at the entrance of the temple, a loud noise suddenly came from inside the temple. Then, the whole temple was within the speed that Yun Jian and Ce could see. It was bombed. It fell down with a loud crash. Sneak attack. This was the first word that came to Yun Jian's mind. The temple was quickly blown up in just a few seconds. Ce's face instantly darkened. The temple was the symbol of his identity as the Divine Emperor, the ruler of the Divine Continent. Today, the mysterious man actually took advantage of his absence to blow up the temple. This was undoubtedly a provocation to him. The only people who lived in the temple were Ce, Yun Jian, and the king god. After the temple was blown up, the masters of the 10 heaven-defying families, as well as the 5 great elders who showed up for the first time, all gathered here. Huang Yan glanced around and did not see her master, the king god. She panicked. How could the temple be blown up? Where is my master? Cough, cough, cough. I'm here. That guy has become so strong. I'm no match for him now. Just as Yun Jian and Ce were frowning, the old king god, who was seriously injured, staggered toward them while clutching his chest. Seeing this, everyone rushed forward to support him. Yun Jian clenched her fists slightly. Ce's violent aura was gradually rising. Not only did he blow up the temple, but he also injured the king god. Needless to say, the guy the king god was talking about was the mysterious man. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.